I met him on a sunny day in late July, and everything turned upside down. I almost lost track of time as weeks went by. I couldn't get him off my mind. I told him I want that great love, like standing in the middle of a bonfire. You don't know how you got there, but you hold tight, knowing that you can't get burned. Just tell me how we lost track of everything but each other. I honestly don't know. And tell me how we messed up, drifting away from each other. Didn't want to let you go. Cause we wanted different things, and I have to deal with it, but it's not easy. So tell me how to let go, cause you really seem to know how to carry on your own. Ever since I got a good look in his eyes, I just knew that he was special. He said he wanted to take it slow, but I couldn't help that I wanted to take it to the next level. Cause I wanted that great love, like standing in the middle of a bonfire. You don't know how you got there, but you hold tight, knowing that you can't get burned. Just tell me how we lost track of everything.
Hello, we're just about ready to begin. Again, if you wish to speak on any of the items coming before the Planning Commission tonight, please fill out a speaker form. They are located at the front of the chambers at the doors. Please bring them to me and make sure you mark which item you'd like to speak on. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to our July 23rd Planning Commission meeting. Glad to have you all here. While the Planning Commission welcomes public involvement in free speech, it rejects comments from anyone that are discriminatory, defamatory, or otherwise not protected by free speech. Those comments will not inform nor be considered by the Planning Commission and may be cause for the chair to interrupt the speaker. Such comments will not be consented to or otherwise adopted by the Planning Commission and in its discussions and findings for any matter tonight. Thank you. Now could everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Adam. Here. Excuse me, Commissioner Adam. Commissioner Bellman is absent. Vice Chair Kennedy.
Here.
Chair Twining.
Here.
Commissioner Wood.
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Here.
And Commissioner Acosta-Galvan is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now is the time for public comments for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Do we have any public comments?
We currently have no members who would like to speak about anything that is not on the agenda.
Oh, thank you. Next are the public hearing items. First, we have an appeal of the zoning administrator's approval of the conditional use permit and the coastal development permit number 23007, the Fan Residence. Planning commissioners, please state your disclosures regarding this item. We'll start with Commissioner Adams.
I have no disclosures. Thank you. No disclosures.
No disclosures?
No disclosures. No disclosures.
Staff, may we have a presentation, please?
Yes, Joanna Cortez, Principal Planner, will be giving the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairperson Twining and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you is a request to, let me get this on this page, is a request to demolish an existing two-story single-family residence and construct a 7,930 square foot, three-story single-family residence with a 725 square foot three-car garage, 439 square foot of second-story balconies, and 652 square feet of third-story balconies at an overall height of 30 feet on an existing 8,943 square foot lot. The project site is located at 3798 Mistral Drive at the northeast corner of Mistral and Wanderer. As previously stated, the existing house is 2 stories, approximately 27 feet in height, and the lot is 8,943 square feet. The neighborhood consists of single-family residents ranging in different height from 1 to 3 stories. The general plan land use designation is RL, or residential low density, and the zoning designation is residential low density with the coastal zone overlay. This item was originally presented to the zoning administrator at the June 5th zoning administrator meeting of this year. Prior to the meeting, staff received approximately 20 written comments, either inquiring about or opposing this project. During the meeting, 21 speakers spoke out against the project, citing concerns with the overall size or massing of the project, incompatibility with the neighborhood. Many felt that this type of development was more appropriate for a waterfront lot versus a non-waterfront lot such as the subject site. There were concerns with soil and potential flooding issues. And then the biggest concern being a potential sober living facility or some type of non-residential use being proposed at this site. The applicant, Beret Kareem, who is here tonight, as well as the property owner's husband, Bradley Fan, were there to help answer questions. Staff further explained that the project, as proposed, was consistent with the base zoning district of RL and general plan land use designation. It was also compatible with surrounding development, and further just explained that no facility was being proposed, nor was there anything that we could find in the pipeline with the state. Therefore, the zoning administrator approved the project but modified the conditions of approval to address concern from residents. These modifications included addressing the measurement of height, just ensuring that it complied with our standard code requirement, and also limiting the use for that site, requiring a covenant to prohibit any non-single-family residential use for the site. On June 5th, the project was appealed by Mayor Pro Tem Burns, stating that the project was too large for the site and the neighborhood, and therefore the approved findings and conditions of approval should be reconsidered. In analyzing the project, staff has found the development to be consistent with the surrounding neighborhood and zoning district regulations. 3-story homes are permitted in RL zone districts citywide. The city does not have different requirements for non-waterfront properties. Homes in the neighborhood consist of a mix of single, 2, and 3 stories in height, up to a maximum of 35 feet. The proposed 30-foot high 3-story residence is consistent with similarly approved residential developments that have been built throughout the Huntington Harbor area within the same zoning district. The proposed 3rd floor space is integrated within the confines of the 2nd-story roof volume to ensure that the residence is compatible in proportion and scale with the surrounding neighborhood. Additionally, the balconies will be oriented towards the street as required by code and set back 5 feet from the building exterior from the 2nd floor building. This right here is an aerial view of the neighborhood. Let's see, the star right here represents the Mistral project, right here, the site. And then these red dots are represent similar projects that have been approved in the area, one most recently across the street. These projects have approved conditional use permits due to either height and/or number of stories. Then the blue dots are other homes that are within the Huntington Harbor area that have been approved similarly to the proposed project today. Those are on much larger lots as well, similar to the proposed the subject site. And then finally, these were some existing 2-story homes that are currently in the area that are similar in height, about approximately 24 feet, or have different architectural elements that are similar in height to what is being proposed today. The subject site, just to kind of reiterate, is quite larger than the average lot size that you'll see here. The lot size is approximately 8,900 square feet, while the average lot size of single-family properties in the vicinity ranged from between 5,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet. So as many of these older properties are being remodeled, many of the sites are being developed to the fullest extent allowed by the zoning code and in proportion to their lot size. The proposed project is compliant with the RL zoning district as well as the general plan land use designation. The matrix here demonstrates how the proposed project meets minimum required development standards such as setbacks. The minimum requirement is 15 feet. The project is proposing 15 feet. The interior side yard setback is 5 feet. The project is proposing 5 feet. The street side yard is 10. The proposed project is 10 as well. The rear yard is a minimum of 10 feet. The proposed project is proposing a larger rear yard at 17 feet and 4 inches. The maximum lot coverage, or the building footprint, is a maximum of 50% of the lot. This is the standard for all RL properties. So in this case, it would be 50% of 8,943 square feet. They are proposing exactly 50% at 4,470 square feet. The maximum building height allowed in the RL district is 35 feet. Tonight's project is proposed at 30 feet. They are complying with landscaping as well as parking. The minimum parking requirement for homes that have more than 5 bedrooms is 3 enclosed spaces and 3 open spaces, which are being proposed with this project. In terms of design, the project incorporates quality materials and designs such as a mansard-style standing seam metal roof with additional materials such as wood siding, stucco, stone, and as you can see, building articulation along the upper portions of the building, which provide interest and help alleviate a lot of the visual mass. So you can see right here, this particular, so you can see that it's pushed in right here, as well as along the sides and the rear. The 3rd floor, which is right here within the confines of the roof, is pushed in from the exterior of the 2nd and 1st floor. So in summary, in considering this request, the Planning Commission may either uphold the zoning administrator's decision with or without modifications, or may take an alternative action. The Planning Commission may approve conditional use permit number 23-019 and coastal development permit number 23-007 based on the following. It's consistent with the general plan goals and policies, along with the requirements of the base zoning district, as well as other applicable provisions of the municipal code. It's compatible with the existing surrounding uses in proportion, scale, and character, and incorporates quality materials and designs such as wood siding, stucco, stone, and building articulation. This concludes staff's presentation. The architect or the applicant, Beret Kareem, is here to help answer any questions, and staff is available as well. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Adams.
Just have one question. So I think you would have said it, but there's no variances being requested, is that correct?
That is correct. The only reason this application is here tonight is because they are proposing a third floor. The code requires that any habitable area proposed above the second floor, it requires a conditional use permit. So there's no special permit or variance proposed with this request.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? We're going to, yeah. Go ahead.
The one thing that I, being newer as a planning commission, find a little bit daunting is we have conditional use permits come before us for like live entertainment at a restaurant, things like that. And to see that one person, the zoning administrator, has the autonomy and unilateral right to approve something that, in my opinion, should start at the planning commission. As you can see, I'm sure many people here at least want their voice heard. I just want to make a statement that I'm a little alarmed that there's that much autonomy to one position, especially in the coastal zone, which is highly sensitive. So that's really more of an observation on my part. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have a comment or question?
Yeah, I saw the calculation, or I didn't see a calculation, but I saw the square footage of landscape that was being proposed to match the required, but I didn't see anything on the site plan that kind of substantiated that. Have they gone through the calculations? It seems like quite a bit of hardscape, especially in the front yard. I didn't see anything of softscape at all.
There is landscaping on the site plan. I can pull it up if you bear with me for a second, but the code does allow a variety of live vegetation as well as concrete, fountains to be considered landscaping as well.
So are the parkways going to be landscaped or hardscaped? I know there's a parkway in between the curb and the sidewalk.
It would be what's currently there right now. So if there is landscaping right there, it should be landscaped.
Well, I believe engineering has conditioned them to redo the drive approach based on the location of the new garages. So I think some of the parkway is going to be demoed. So, but you think the rest is going to stay in place?
Let me pull up the site plan. If you'd like to move on for a moment while I do it, or if you don't mind waiting.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Joanna, for the presentation. I have a question. Since I do sit on the design review board, is there a further opportunity to, I know, Mr. Wood had a question regarding landscape, hardscape. Could we have an opportunity, or residents have an opportunity to suggest after this, or no?
Do you mean like through the DRB? Or
Yeah, to give some suggestions regarding.
These types of developments don't require
no.
design review board approval. However, there's always an opportunity if you'd like to modify or suggest anything to be added.
Yeah.
Let me.
I personally don't. I did see the email that came down from Councilmember Pat Burns, and how he mentioned, the build is too big for the area and neighborhood, but didn't really give an explanation or if any variances were being asked. But I think based on Commissioner Adam and his question regarding variances, I think that clarifies a lot with regards to the size and what really is Mr. Pham asking for. So I really appreciate that clarification. With regards to sober living facility, I know we received a lot of emails regarding that, and I want to make sure that the residents, are being heard. So with regards to that, I know you mentioned that there is currently no application at the state level. Since when does the ball start rolling if there is a potential sober living home moving into a neighborhood, in your experience?
There is an application, a separate process for that. So city staff would be aware of it. We don't have any record of any being proposed. And we double checked with the state to see if there was anything coming through the pipeline that maybe we weren't aware of yet, and we couldn't find anything.
Awesome, thank you. And then when was the last time the RL zone, which this property is located on, was that ever changed within the last 5 years or?
Changed in terms of like development standards or like
Exactly.
these standards?
Exactly.
We just did a zoning text update, but nothing that would have
Affected this?
this
So
specific
this
zone.
this type of zoning has been in place for many years?
Correct.
So it's not, okay, cool. I think that clarifies a lot for me, so thank you very much.
I wanted to quickly go back to Commissioner Wood. This is the existing conditions. They would be, while they are widening the apron, they would be required to have it match, and I have Public Works here as well, to match the right-of-way improvements, right, along Wanderer as well as along Mistral. And then in terms of the site plan, and there we'll get proper landscaping plans and other grading plans during plan check, should it get approved.
I just want to clarify one thing that Commissioner Rodriguez brought up. I understand that as a condition of approval of this CUP, that the owner has accepted the condition that this home will not ever be used as a group living home. Is that correct?
That is correct. During the zoning administrator meeting, the ZA added a condition to require a covenant to be done in order for there to be, just to ensure that it would be a single-family residence for the life of this particular property. These conditional use permits or similar entitlements run with the land. Should they try to change that, modify that in any way, it would require what's called an entitlement plan amendment. So it would be a brand-new public hearing. Everybody would be notified that they were trying to amend or remove a condition.
And this condition will follow new owners of that home. They can't sell the house, and the new owner.
It would be it's a covenant that would be recorded
It'll
on
be
the
recorded.
property, and it runs with the land.
Okay.
So again, if a new property owner were to buy the property and want to change this condition, they would have to go through a public hearing process as well.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kennedy.
So another thing that I noticed on the CUP was you cited land use 1D and land use 4D with the definition of being compatible, proportionable, and at scale. So when you're going to cite these things, I'm going to look them up. You know, I know what those words mean, but you know, when you look at the word, the definition of compatible, to exist or occur without conflict, I would imagine there's many people that will speak here tonight that would basically align with the definition that this is without conflict. I mean, this certainly by the emails I've read, there is conflict, so that's compatible. Proportion is basically defined simply as the size, number, and amount of one thing or group as compared to the size, number, or amount of another. So I'm not sure, based on what I've read and what I've seen, that this could be deemed compatible. So when you're citing these in the CUP, I have to look at those and determine, does it meet compatibility and proportion and scale? I don't think it does, but I want to hear what the people have to say. But when I look at that CUP, by definition, it doesn't meet my definition of those words.
Good question. I had a couple more questions.
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify, you mentioned the existing height of the current house is 27 feet, is that correct?
It's approximately
Approximately.
27 feet. A lot of the two-story homes are kind of high-pitched story
Okay.
homes.
And then when you're doing your comps, you mentioned somewhere in there was a 6,000 square foot house. Are you pulling corner lots for all these, or are you taking just the average homes in the neighborhood? Corner lots have a different configuration. They're bigger lots. They typically have a different design based on.
It was just generally speaking that a
speaking.
lot of the lots out there range between 5,000 to 6,000 square feet, give or take. But you are correct. In this particular case, throughout the island and the adjacent islands, you'll see that a lot of these corner homes typically have larger lots.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, I may have heard this wrong. Did you say the new home has a roof height of 30 feet?
That is correct.
Thank you. With no further questions from the commissioners, it's now open for public hearing. Do we have any speakers tonight?
We do have speakers. Please come down when your name is called. Due to the number of speakers, please make sure you line up behind each microphone and come up once it's your turn. Please state your name prior to speaking. Thank you. Beret Karim, and apologies in advance if I mispronounce your names. Lee Chrysilius, Dane Schotter, George Kopchak, Kathy Miller, James DeMarco, Cheryl DeMarco, and I will call the rest later.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Beret Karim. I'm with the 7 Designs, representing the owner who is due to a family emergency couldn't be here. He has left the country. I'm here to, what have Ms. Cortez said. I just want to add a few other small items. One is that there were a rumor that this place is going to be used for a sober living and then also non-residential use. That was absolutely not correct. This rumor, I don't know where it came from, and majority of the people that had an objection was because of that. The owner never planned to use this for anything but the single-family residence. They have 3 kids, and they have their parents that live with them. So that's, and he previously lived in Chicago with, I think, 15,000 square foot house. So that's his lifestyle. That's one thing. Second, they were concerned that the building was too big. If you look at most of the lots that are there, they're between, as Ms. Cortez said, between 5,000 to 6,000. This is a large lot. It's about 9,000 square foot. So obviously, larger lot can allow a larger building footprints. We have went through the design review with the planning over 2 years, including during the COVID time. And we have adjusted, modified our design, and as you can see, we have met all the zoning and planning requirements. In addition, we could have gone to 35 feet. We elected to be compatible with the neighborhood. We pulled it down to 30 feet. The present house that is there, it's a 2-story, it's about 27 to 28 feet high. It's has a 4-bedroom, 3 bathrooms. So obviously, that's one thing. The other thing is, per your comment that the building looked very bare, you were right. We intentionally wanted to show the massing. In a real way, there is going to be a lot of landscaping. There are going to be 2 or 3 palm trees in front. There's going to be much, much more lush landscaping in the back. So you will not just see this bare building there. We also used top quality material for this area. Honestly, I've been in this business for the past 20-something years. We would never, ever want to bring a design to a neighborhood that will pull the neighborhood down. On the contrary, we like to raise the quality of the neighborhood. Now, from one point of view, you see that the building is too massive. It's because the lot is large. So I just want to...
Thank you very much, Mr. Kareem. I failed to mention, my bad. You got we have 3 minutes tonight, so thank you very much, sir.
First, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lee Chrysilius. I actually live on the corner of Wanderer Lane, facing directly into the side of the proposed project. And I asked the assistant to put up on the map again, all those homes that you see dotted in red are homes that are on the waterfront. I did a quick little aerial that I showed at the zoning administrators meeting, a 500-foot radius from the center of that property out around that area, and within that 500 square foot radius, there are almost 75 homes, only one of which is over 5,000 square feet. 2 over 4,000 square feet, the rest of them are between 1,600 and 3,360 square feet. Just for my own purposes, have all of you read the general plan amendment that was ratified in 2017? Show of hands. Very good. Then I'm sure you've all read the number of times that the words community and neighborhood and consistent with the community development are repeated in the general plan amendment. I'm not opposed to somebody building a beautiful new home in our neighborhood. There's 3 or 4 under construction right now on Humboldt Island. And all the homes that I've seen renovated and built are beautiful homes. They follow all the guidelines, and I understand they've approached the maximum of all the zoning requirements that they can get on that property. But at the end of the day, it is not compatible with the homes in the surrounding area. And I think that's what the general opinion is about this, the use of this property. And I was going to read all the sentences out of the general plan amendment, but if you read it, I won't bore you with it. But I would just like to read the last paragraph of the email that I sent to the commission on the 21st. Since we've moved on to Humboldt Island, several homes have been demolished and rebuilt, with several being within the land use 1D guidelines. Our home is one of the last 16 remaining single stories houses on Humboldt. We're encouraged by the reasonable investments in the beautification of our neighborhood, but not the unreasonable investment in a 3-story McMansion with no ocean views in the middle of the island. We respectfully request the Planning Commission to disapprove this unprecedented project and request the applicant submit a modified plan with a reduction in square footage and mass, and resubmit a plan similar to the homes in the surrounding neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Dane Shota. I live on Humboldt and Leonard. I'm on a corner house. I have a larger lot, 7,100. My square footage on the house is 3,100. And I believe that this house is not conforming to the neighborhood. I'm also a certified arborist, and I'm not a bird expert. However, I am a tree expert. And I understand that we have some protected birds that's in some trees in the back. There's a pine tree on the left-hand side in the back, Pinus canariensis to be exact. And then we have some, it looks like some cedars or whatnot on the right-hand side. And for these trees, when they get to be nice and strong, the root zone can actually go 2 to 3 times the amount of the drip line. The drip line is where the branches go out and down, that is your drip line. So it can go out 3 times the amount of the drip line. And if that building encroaches on those roots, it could actually harm the house for these protected birds. That's something to look at. Also, since this is a new build, it should be under the Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance, which is the state mandated ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Yes. My name is George Kopchak. I also live on Humboldt Island. I have 3 concerns about this project. The first of all is the 3-story home. As you see from that map there are 3-story homes, but they're all on the water, looking at the water. This is going to be off the water, looking at people's backyards and front yards and kitchens and pools and everything else like that. I think there's no room for 3-story houses off the water. This also sets precedent for all the other islands in the neighborhood too. All of a sudden, next house that be sold is going to be another mansion, 3-story house with numerous bedrooms. Second concern I have is the number of bedrooms. It's basically a 7-bedroom with an office with a bathroom, so that's 8 bedrooms actually. Here's a list of off-corner houses. I'll submit to you as evidence if I can. The largest house is about 3,800 square feet with 4 bedrooms. So no house has more than 4 bedrooms. No house has more than 2 stories of corner lots houses, okay? I'd like to submit that as well as the picture. The corner of Minstrel and Warner where this house is being built during high tide floods. About a foot deep of water in the middle of the road. The residents know that. We go different directions. We go very slow. This house is being built right here on the edge of that flood zone. The current house being designed now is twice the size of the house there now, with the pool, landscape. I'm not a structural engineer. I'm an engineer. I understand physics, though. You're putting twice that amount of weight in that same area. I'm concerned that they may cause that deviation, that flooding area to get worse. Okay, so that's a very concern for a neighborhood. You know, has a weight, or has anybody inspected the structure of the property right there? I met Mr. Fan. He's a very nice neighbor. I think he would be a great neighborhood. He'd love the island. The island has, everybody knows each other. They talk and everything like that. I think he'd fine, but I just would request that he considers downsizing his home to a smaller 2-story house that fits the neighborhood. Thank you.
Let me call the additional speakers. Please come down and line up behind the other speakers. Craig Durfee, Mike Romero, Bill Booth, Gary Higgins, Amir Farahani, and Henriette Reifel.
Next speaker, please.
My name is Kathy Miller, and I live on Humboldt Island. I have some of the same concerns that were previously mentioned, and one of my biggest concerns is regarding the seawalls. On Humboldt Island, there's approximately 88 off-water homes around the center of the island. Of these homes, the average square footage is 2,449 square feet. The proposed home, adding garage and balconies, is 9,746 square feet, which is 4 times the size. That's hardly compatible. The location on the island where this house is being built is a low point, as seen in this photo and the one that George had. The water, it floods on that corner, and it floods really bad. So the island was dredged and filled on former wetlands. The water table for these homes are, at least at my house, is 4 to 5 feet. An average house, 2,500 square feet, weighs approximately 433,000 pounds. The proposed house weighs approximately 1,680,000 pounds. That's almost 4 times the weight. What will the weight be doing? What kind of effect will the weight have on the seawall that's right across the street? The seawall is old, and it's with the water table and everything. Has anyone done studies to make sure that it's not going to cause injury to the seawall? What kind of guarantee from the city, the builder, and the owner are we going to get to ensure that it doesn't become a huge issue? At a minimum, I would request that the city do an independent inspection to guarantee that there won't be any issue if they allow this house to be built. My house shifts and settles all the time, and there's always new cracks. There's no way that that much weight isn't going to cause problems. And that's it. I just hope my house doesn't fall down when he builds his.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Hello, I'm James DeMarco. And Mr. Kareem, are you an architect? That's a yes? What's your license number? Your architect's license number?
I'm not an architect, but my firm is.
The firm is not licensed, it's the person that's licensed.
Mr. DeMarco, if you could address your comments to the commission.
Well, I want to know because this is a document by the and my architect wife is right here. This is a document by the California Architects Board that says what architects can do. They can design any building except a structural portion of a hospital. A civil engineer may design any building except hospitals and public schools. And a structural engineer has no limitations on their design. And the key word is design. This whole section here talks about what unlicensed persons can only do. And it says they're limited to the design of single-family dwellings of wood frame construction, so no steel, not more than 2 stories and a basement in height, okay? And it references Business and Professions Code number 5537, 5538, 6737.1, which of course we all know code is the law. So by the city, by Mr. Ramos approving this, he broke the law. And I think that's very important because whenever there's a dispute in court, usually it goes back to did the person who did the plans, did he have standing to actually do the plans in the first place? And if he was not allowed to do the plans, this needs to be kicked out and started over with a licensed architect. And it can't be stamped later by an architect, it has to be designed by an architect. So I want to make sure that that's very clear. So in my opinion, this goes back to day one when this never should have been accepted as a set of plans. I know in Newport Beach, they make sure that 3 stories or above have to be stamped by a licensed architect before they're, or an engineer before they're submitted. So I have 30 seconds left, and all I'm going to say is by approving it, I believe it's a liability to the city. If the seawall falls or something happens, then you're exposing the city to a lot of lawsuits. And then I want to say about Mr. Kennedy's comment about Mr. Ramos having really unlimited power, it seems. Every time I come here, it's like rubber stamping whatever people want, and I think that should be investigated. Okay, that's it.
Next speaker, please. Go ahead, she'll reset it.
Hi, I'm Cheryl DeMarco, architect, and I'll just touch briefly on what my husband was referring to. The state requires me, I'm a licensed architect, to sign and stamp everything I submit into a city at any level. The business code states that it has to be signed and stamped to get a permit. They've interpreted it to mean that it's a building permit, but we're talking about a conditional use permit to continue on the process, or a coastal permit. I mean, the Coastal Commission is relying upon the city to make these recommendations. There's many of these that have come through the city, I know because I see them. They're unlicensed persons that are designing these 3-story structures with a rooftop deck. That is a 4-story structure, not 3 stories. It's physically 4 stories. So on this project, the stars you see over here, it was kind of represented that all of the approved CUPs on the island were 3 stories. The one directly to the north of it, that one right here, that's a 2-story with a rooftop deck. I designed that, so I know that for a fact. So I'm not sure, I didn't do the research, but I don't know that they are all 3 stories. And then I don't believe that this meets the compatibility of the neighborhood. I think the massing is too big. I do think it's too large. I don't think it's proportioned with the island and the other residents. And I've had a lot of people that have contacted me that have been, concerned. I do work on the island on Humboldt. I've done a few projects. I have one currently in progress. And then I do not know how they did the calculation. When I look at it on my sheet, when I do the red, the lot coverage, it's very close. I didn't actually do the square footage, but I think it's over the 50% allowable. And I don't see that they've really represented themselves here in these documents, that they've done the lot coverage calculation. I don't see any pages that have it on there. So it's a little bit, and then I'm going to touch back on the unlicensed professional. So I was on the California Architects Board Regulatory and Enforcement Committee for 2 years, and the unlicensed professionals are a huge problem throughout the state. And it's a liability to the city, and it's something that I think the Planning Commission should look at and make it mandatory for all submittals to planning be signed and stamped.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Craig Durfee. I've lived in Huntington Beach 37 years, last 14 on Humboldt Island. Some stuff has already been mentioned, what I like to talk about. There are 88 off-water homes on my island. I know I walk my dog every day. Everybody knows me up there as the guy with the bulldog. But there's not one tear down of an off-water house, not one. There's been some modifications, some additions to the garages, but they all keep the original L-shaped type footprint. The lowest part of the island is that intersection, that corner. It gets flooded during the very extreme high tides, and the road there is deteriorating right now because the salt water sits on that for most of the day. Construction, traffic alone is going to tear that road up, let alone that heavy of a building. Mr. Pham did an unexpected house call at my house. Wanted to know why I didn't like the house and what I had against it. He told me he had a soil test already done and got approval for that. I've become friends and acquaintance with a contractor who's building his 4th house on the island right now, and I've talked to him about this. He said he would not, and I've seen him do this, he would not build a house without first taking 8 feet of dirt out and replacing it with 6 feet of gravel to make a base foundation for a house. This is on a regular 2-story house, not a house this size. During the visit from Mr. Pham, he wanted to know what my biggest, why I was opposed to this house. And I told him because I've been down this road before. I've met the owners, have talked to them, become friends. Next thing you know, we got a VRBO next door to me, a party house, or a monthly rental house. That's one of my biggest concerns. We've talked about facts and figures. I'm here to help we need help saving our community. Over the last 5 years, we've had VRBOs move in, short-term rentals, 30-day rentals, party houses when they have 7 valets parking cars, blocking intersection, blocking hydrants, blocking cul-de-sacs. One of the VRBOs even advertised on their website, they're permit exempt. Did you know we have a permit exempt VRBO? Isn't that kind of funny? Another one advertises their non-licensed fishing expedition, and you stay at the VRBO. My biggest concern is the deterioration of my community. I've been here, like I said, 37 years. I raised my daughter here, and we're now helping her raise my granddaughter here. So please help us save our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durfee. Next.
Yes, my name is Bill Booth. I live around the corner on Wanderer Lane, and I've lived there for 42 years. I'm a licensed real estate broker, and I'm approaching this from a slightly different direction. The house as it stands now has got 8 bedrooms between 180 and 300 square feet. They have 2 rooms, a prayer room and a game room that could easily be converted into bedrooms. So now we have a 10-bedroom, 8-bath house, right? Now, in comparison, if I had a room and I rented a room at Motel 6, a budget hotel, they are anywhere between 200 and 300 square feet, okay? So 5 of these rooms are smaller than the smallest room in a Motel 6. And the master bedroom, the one that everyone is the most important room in the house probably, is only 300 square feet, which is the exact size of a standard room at a Motel 6. Now, think about this, gentlemen. If you're spending $2.15 to buy the house, you're probably going to spend over $4 million to build the house, probably closer to $5 with the quality they're planning on. We're looking at $7 million to build a house, and your master bedroom is 15 by 20? No, I don't think so. What it's going to be used for is something not owner-occupied. God knows what it's going to be used for. And as to the thing that runs with the land where they can't turn it into another house, that's essentially unenforceable. What do you do when they have 10 people living in the house? What do you do? Call the city attorney? What does he do? Not much. Anyway, the whole point is, part of my alarm is just like Mr. Kennedy's alarm. When the decision was made originally to approve this, I spoke then, and there were probably twice as many people here that spoke. And no one wanted it, but I believe the decision was made before we even started talking. So anyway, that's it. I don't believe for a second that that's going to be a single-family owner-occupied dwelling.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Next.
Yes, my name is Gary Higgins, and I've been a Huntington Beach resident since '96. I've been on Humboldt Island for 14 years now, and it was quiet when I moved there, but that has changed. Mr. Kennedy's questions about the prior approval autonomy, great questions, and I concur with the prior speaker, that needs investigation. There should not have been that level of autonomy. Mr. Rodriguez asked how the ball starts rolling with something such as a sober living, and then the chair followed up with additional questions. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Those are great questions, and that's my concern as well. With 8 bedrooms, 8 baths, in each bedroom, it's like a Motel 6 or less. And I worry about subsequent owners. I have had real estate licenses before, so I understand exactly where the prior speaker is coming from. If it's a covenant that's recorded and runs with the land, I appreciate you gentlemen sticking to that, and I'll remember that. Hopefully this gets stopped and it doesn't happen. So on Humboldt specifically, I live on Marufa, and I'll call out an address, 16352 Marufa. Within the last year, I've witnessed street fights that have been recorded on video cameras by my neighbor twice. I have witnessed rave parties. I have witnessed rehab patients walking up to me in my driveway asking for alcohol because they were going through withdrawals. So this is a thing that's happening, and this needs to stop happening at the commission level. And I appreciate your efforts in that. And you can look at the police call logs and you can verify that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Next.
Good evening. My name is Amir Farahani, and I live in Humboldt Drive. Actually, my property is right behind the proposed development. We have been living there for 22 years, and we do have a nice backyard. We get together with friends and families and enjoy our evenings in the backyard or the patio. Now, with these massive structures is going to be facing my backyard, it's going to definitely change our lifestyle, and it's going to impact us negatively. First of all, I second and echo what the others said, that this building with this mass is not going to fit in our neighborhood. The impact of 8,000 square foot. My property is only, it was 1,700 square foot. I expanded, now it's 2,500 square foot. And it's a one-story house. And we feel that there's sometimes there's some cracking. I'm a civil engineer. When we compact the area, we make sure it gets to 95% at that time. But can you imagine, with the good quality that the architect was talking about, good quality material means heavier and bigger, 3-4 times heavier. What the impact is going to have on the man-made island, the soil that has been compacted by man, not by the natures, no rocks, no fault, just the dirt. It's going to be pretty massive. The impact is going to be on the structures adjacent property, definitely. The equipment they are going to use, put these massive beams and buildings up, it's going to be tremendous. And the impact definitely is going to be on the public utilities. It's going to be all on all underground utilities. We do have sewer lines right next to it, a storm drain, Edison, power point, and all the landscaping, curb and gutter, catch basins, everything is going to be impacted. So on one side, there is one developer developing other areas. The intention is not, it's questionable. The size of the house is questionable. The report we get, it's questionable. And on the other side, there's other residents in the neighborhood, which they are fearful and they are scared of these, which is going to change their lifestyles.
Thank you very
The
much.
bottom, I just have to say we are here, and we need support, and we need your support.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Farhani.
Hi, council members. My name is Henriette Riafel. I also live on the street. My parents now live in that little house of 1,700 square feet. And they are very happy about the fact that they don't have to be close to the water. And this, in addition to all the complaints that all the other residents have, I'm also a full-fledged civil engineer since 1990. And I practice structural and soil engineering. And my master's degree and things like that, they are all in soil and structure interaction. And I've been expert witness, and I also have been invited to value engineering at all of the project level. I practice facility design and also failure of the facilities, mainly. And so as a practicing engineer, I learned about the strict professional ethics while I gather design experience. This project is a perfect example of a design professionals finding all the possible loophole to fulfill the client's request and forget about the ethic codes that we professionals promise to upkeep. And I think that it's actually very grossly, violated in the ethical sense. I have been practicing for 30-some years, and never have I seen anything like that. And I have also tried to help a client in Santa Barbara to put a shed in the back of the house, and it was not, it was not flying. It's with the Coastal Commission, and I'm very surprised that this here was like unconditionally, permitted by the Coastal Commission. It's a very, very, very huge surprise. I don't know if they gave up on Huntington Beach or something like that. I don't know. But, it was the first stop, and ever, that's the Coastal Commission. And for some reason, it's just like this happened. And so I really urge you to vote with your heart, and and as the result, we might be able to close some loophole for future project. And another note on to respond to the future public hearing. The residents on the island are very, very elderly. They are empty nesters, and they are also very old.
Thank you very much.
Customers are not going to be the same.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thanks for being here, guys, and letting us speak. We have a big turnout on this subject, and you guys know there's a lot of concern. I live on Mistral Drive. My name's Mike Romero. I live in the exact same home that they're going to tear to the ground. There's plenty of living space, plenty of front yard and backyard. The real concern for me is density. This affects our neighborhood, and it's going to create a density issue. It impacts all of our neighbors. Square footage, the house is almost built to the lot limits. And if that's our city code, we should revisit that, because you're nothing left after this thing gets built. Parking is an issue already on the island, especially on the cul-de-sacs. There's cars that block sidewalks now. This plot plan, 8 to 10 bedrooms, they say there are other rooms for other issues. But in other cities, for every bedroom you build, you have to have a parking spot. So I have a 4-bedroom. I can park 4 cars at my house, not in the street. And that's something we should look at as a community. I worked for the city of Long Beach for many years. They ruined their city with density. They permitted everything under the sun, and there's nowhere to park. Density's bad. The neighborhoods went bad. And that's a fact. In the city of Norwalk, like I said, for every room you have a bedroom, you have to have a parking spot. And this corner lot, that's going to impact all those neighbors in that area. And trash day is the same thing. It's a very bad day on trash day on the island. I oppose the project that needs to be downsized. It needs to be proportionate. I think Mr. Kennedy said that. You know, if you're going to build a home, build it that blends into the neighborhood. Get an architect that does something nice that blends into the neighborhood. And then you're not affecting your neighbors. And that's what this is all about. You know, let's say one of you gentlemen, this was built next to you. You would not like it. Drug rehab home allowed next to you, you would not like it. Airbnb, VRBO, you would not like it. So pretend that you are us, and then make your decision on this. Don't let this permit set precedents for the future of Huntington Beach or Humboldt Island, because if this gets passed and it goes through, someone else is going to do the same thing. And just like the city of Long Beach, you get high density, you get poor neighborhoods, it gets run down. So thank you for your time, gentlemen. I hope you make a good decision, and a lot of concerned neighbors and citizens of Huntington Beach here to oppose it.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
We have no further speakers signed up.
Just going to ask you that. Okay. Well, with no further questions, we're going to open this up to commissioners. Public speaking is done. And we're going to open this up to the planning commissioners now to deliberate. I will first call on Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair Twining. So this question is for staff. I'm not an architect myself or an engineer, and I really don't intend to be. And the reason why, I have this question is because similar comments have been brought up to the design review regarding architect and engineers and whatnot. So can city staff share what safeguards the city has to ensure viability of a structure in place currently? Through the process of getting a permit and all that, like I'm assuming that staff reviews it and there's structural engineers and architects that review all this and whatnot. So if you could talk a little bit more about that, just so I could get a little bit more educated on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think you're asking a question in relation to what DeMarcos had indicated about licensed architects. So at the entitlement stage, there is no need for that at this point, but when they submit for building permit, a plan check, then there are requirements for plans to be stamped by licensed professionals.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Based on what I heard from the DeMarcos, and thank you for the initial answer, Mr. Ramos, but there seems to be a contradiction in beliefs, and I don't know who's right or who's wrong. As Mr. Rodriguez stated, I'm not an architect either, but it doesn't sound like that is the position they took. You're taking a converse position that it can be stamped later. I believe the architect, Mr. DeMarco, said quite to the contrary, that's not allowable. So for future and for now, that does need to be resolved emphatically and disseminated so we can dispel who's right and who's wrong, or really what the policy is, because it is a legal question and it needs to be addressed. Maybe Mr. Papajohn knows we can rely on him. And aside from that, I think, what I originally said about compatibility and the proportion based on the CUP, it just doesn't seem that it's compatible or proportionate. And if we're going to dictate those words on the CUP, I think we need to dictate the build relative to those words. I don't see that based on what I've heard. So I will not be able to support this item. The one other thing I'd like to have resolved is Mr. Marco said, without using completely exact calculations, she seemed to think it was nowhere near the 50%, so maybe somebody can take a CAD drawing or whatever it takes to actually quantify the true ratio of footprint to lot size and publish that, and that'd be greatly appreciated. So that's my comments. Thank
you, Commissioner Kennedy. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you. Yeah, so I do want to follow up. I mean, I don't want to pick on a particular commenter, but he made a claim that you either broke the law or committed a crime. And those are fairly, those are some pretty important words, I guess. So from the city's perspective, I guess it's coming back to this, it is common when you're trying to get something approved, you do, a schematic or you do conceptual, and then upon approval, before you spend a ton of money, you then go to do final calculations. You typically wouldn't hire a structural engineer at an entitlement stage. You wait until you're approved till afterwards because they're expensive and it's very detailed calculations. But coming back, I just want to see, to the city, from your perspective, do you feel like you've committed a crime by reviewing their plans at the planning level?
Well, we did seek a legal opinion on this question, and the legal opinion came back that during the endowment stage that there is no need to stamp the plans, but at the building permit stage, there is a requirement in certain cases.
And on that building permit stage, there'll be architecture plans, but I assume there'll be other plans. There'll be a grading drainage plan, there'll be a foundation plan, there'll be a footing plan, there'll be structural calculations.
Correct, yep.
There'll be settlements, liquefaction, is all that stuff geotech, or does the gentleman who designed the house just get to make all that up?
There's typically a geotech report required with the building permit and with the grading plan.
Okay. And then a question about the seawall, based on the city's experience, are the scenario, again, sea level rise is different, a lot of things can happen, but from the city's perspective, is the sea level rise, the seawall structure, does the city have concerns about a house being built inland from that in the neighborhood? Is that something the city would be concerned with?
Hello, Commissioner.
Yeah.
No, currently the seawall is reviewed every few years. The structural integrity of it is reviewed by an outside consultant. And as Mr. Ramos stated, there would be a soils report prepared by a licensed engineer, licensed geotech engineer. So that would give us the mitigation measures to design a compatible foundation for this structure that would spread the load effectively and should not negatively impact that seawall.
Okay, thank you. And so, I too have concerns about the size of VRBO. It is a corner lot. I have a corner lot, so I am a little bit biased that it is 30% bigger than your typical. That lot is 30% typical than the non-corner lots, and I haven't heard anybody talk about that. So I'm on the fence here, or on the post, or what do you want to call it. But I do hear the sizing is a concern from my perspective also. I think some of the other concerns are less of a concern for me based on my knowledge of construction in this process. But I may have other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. I just want to clarify something, for my own edification. Would the rejection of this CUP only affect the third floor living space? Basically, they couldn't occupy or build on the third floor or in the roof attic. It would not stop the construction of the home or the progress moving forward to build the home as it is right now. Is that true?
That is correct. They could propose a two-story home at 30 feet in height with the same building footprint and go directly to plan check. What is triggering today's the CUP and CDP request is the third floor.
That's what I thought. I too, like the other commissioners up here, Commissioner Kennedy especially, has stated that I don't feel as though the house as it is right now fits the character of that part of the neighborhood, or most of Huntington Harbor for that matter. I grew up in Huntington Harbor. I was there in 1966, so I've seen it grow. An interior house of nearly 8,000 feet, the 8,000 square foot is almost unheard of. and I'll mention for a couple of our engineers in the crowd, I'm a retired, aspiring, unlicensed, non-licensed geotechnical engineer. I hung out with them my whole life, and I would be a little bit concerned. I don't think, you know, our engineer's sitting right in front of me. I'd be a little concerned about differential settlement just because of the size of the home and the foundation. Yeah, maybe you can spread it out, but that would be a little bit of a concern of mine. If I was a geotechnical engineer, I would be a little concerned. Anyway, I too won't be able to support this item for the CUP. I know it doesn't sidetrack the home in and of itself, but I can't support this item. Thank you. Commissioner Woods.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of comments. I, being in the business and developing projects all over Southern California for the last 4 decades, I have not really experienced having to have anybody licensed stamp a preliminary set of plans during an entitlement process, but there can be cities such as Newport Beach, I suppose, that may have something in their municipal code that requires it. But I guess my feeling here is I think a lot of valid points have been brought up tonight. I live on Trinidad Island, so I'm not far from you guys. I would hope that an applicant under these circumstances would be a little bit more compassionate with their neighbors and maybe understand their concerns and issues a little bit more. I have no idea how many people he has spoken to, but my general feeling is yes, he is meeting all of the basic criteria, without a doubt. However, I drive the islands. We have a Duffy. We drive the harbor all the time. We see 3-story houses on the water, none off water. I just think there should have been a little bit more cooperation of a neighbor to build something that their other neighbors would be less concerned about. And that's my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions, anybody? All right. Do we have a motion on this item? I'm not sure exactly how to make this motion, but go ahead.
The motion is to approve, let me confirm with Steph. The motion would be to approve the CUP, which would approve the house that was shown on this, correct?
If the commission wants the project to move forward, it would be a motion to approve the project. If you have concern about any particular finding, and if you can't make one finding, then it would be a denial, and you just need to tell us which finding it is that you have a concern with.
Okay.
Well, my concern is very similar to what Mr. Kennedy said, and that's, you know, an obvious one, that it would be policy land use 1D and, hang on a minute, and 4D.
Is that a
So
motion?
I have one more question, sorry, because I'm coming to the same conclusion. But so if you can, I'm not good at math. If somebody takes off the 3rd story, what's the 2-story going to be?
In terms of like habitable area,
Square footage.
it would be, I think it's about approximately 1,000 square feet on the 3rd floor, so it would knock it down to about 6,900 square feet, I believe, of just habitable.
Of habitable, okay. Thank you.
All right, before I make the motion, what I would say is, whatever the outcome may be, let's say there was a vote to deny the CUP, based on the input from the neighbors and the configuration, even if this CUP is denied and you wanted to proceed, I think it would be in good faith, my opinion only, that there's a reconfiguration to kind of wane off the worry of why you would build such a large home with such small bedrooms, kind of to fend off the fact that this is really truly going to be somebody's, you know, beautiful home, built to last, big, luscious bedrooms, and not something that could easily be monetized. So it's just some input from me personally. It's got nothing to do with how you act, but just that's the feel I get from the people speaking out against it. So with that said, I guess since I will be voting against it, I would make a motion, tell me if I'm formulating this right, to deny the conditional use permit 23-019 and the other, the coastal permit 23-007. I would make a motion to deny. Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second that motion.
Just to clarify, based on the discussion from the commission about incompatibility, it appears that under the CUP, you might have a concern with finding number 1 about not being a detriment, and then you have a concern about finding number 2 in those policies that you cited. Is that correct?
Well, you cited you cited land use 1A, 1D, and 4D. So it was 2 different citings of the compatibility, prorated, and scale. So I'm utilizing those. I don't believe it meets the definition of those words.
Okay, so we're only going to go with finding number 2 only.
Okay, I mean, if I don't have I'm looking at my notepad right now, so I'm not looking at the CUP.
Okay.
So obviously, if we're voting to deny, it's a yes vote, because we're going the other way.
Correct.
Just want to make sure we get the votes correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 5 ayes, 2 absences. Commissioner Costa Galvan and Commissioner Pellman are absent. The project is denied.
So the Planning Commission's action on this item is appealable to the City Council within 10 calendar days. An appeal must include the reasons for the appeal, any required fee, and shall be filed with the City Clerk's office within 10 calendar days.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda tonight is the zoning map amendment number 24003, which is titled Mapping Consistency Cleanup Project Utility Sites. Planning Commissioners, do you have any disclosures?
I have no disclosures. Thank you.
No disclosure, Chairman.
I have none.
I spoke to one of the adjacent residents on the adjacent to the railroad easement off of Springdale.
No disclosures. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, may we have the presentation, please?
Yes, Senior Planner Madeline Welch will give the presentation.
Thank you, Mom. Just wait a minute. Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Tonight's item is a zoning map amendment that are 2 sites that are developed as utilities. This item was previously presented at the May 28th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting that was continued. So to begin, staff has identified 42 parcels that are developed as utility sites with inconsistent zoning within regards to conformance of the general plan. To provide some background, the general plan is a comprehensive blueprint that provides a framework for the utilization and management of the city's physical and economic resources and guides the decisions regarding land use for the city through the year 2040. State law requires every city to adopt a general plan and requires the zoning ordinance to be consistent with it. The zoning map and ordinance are both tools to implement the general plan land use element. This amendment is prompted as a housekeeping item to clean up the zoning map, bring those parcels into conformance with the current general plan designations, and to eliminate any nonconformities. The amended zoning of the parcels in tonight's request would be amended to public semi-public, which is PS, which is the corresponding zone to their existing general plan designation of public, which is P. The amended designations will correspond with the existing uses on site, and 7,388 notices were sent out to properties within 500 feet of each subject site. Notices were sent via certified mail to the property owners of each subject site, and staff did not receive any requests to opt out. Here's an existing zoning map of outlining the parcels that are included in the amendment. We also have physical copies of the maps available in the chambers tonight. Here is the amended map demonstrating what the new zoning designations would be, and now I'll go through each example for you. So example 1, this is the properties that are developed as Southern California Edison utility lines with nurseries below them. This is between Heil and Warner, which is just east of Newland Street. There are 3 parcels included in this example, and the existing zoning designation for all 3 parcels is low-density residential, which is RL, and the existing general plan designation is P. So the proposed amendment would change the zone to PS, which is public, semi-public, to match the general plan. The next example that we have is located along Warner Avenue. The site currently has a zoning designation of general commercial, and it's developed as a driveway along Riverbend Drive. So as I mentioned, the existing zoning is general commercial. The general plan designation for the site is public. So the amendment would change the zone to public, semi-public to match a general plan. Our third example is the Southern California Edison Bolsa substation as well as adjacent sites. This example includes 4 parcels that are located on the corner of Edinger Avenue and Graham Street. The site is currently zoned industrial limited with a general plan designation of public, and the amendment would change the zoning designation to public, semi-public to be consistent with the general plan. Our fourth example are more Southern California Edison towers. These are located along Hamilton Avenue, just to the west of Edison Park. This example includes 1 parcel. The existing zoning designation for this parcel is single-family residential, and the general plan designation is public. So the amendment would change the designation to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Example number 5 are other Southern California Edison sites, which are also used as the Huntington Beach Community Garden. This parcel is located along the Santa Ana River Channel, and it actually includes 2 parcels. The current zoning designation is residential agriculture with a general plan designation of public. So this amendment would change the zoning designation to public, semi-public to match a general plan. Our 6th example are more Southern California Edison sites along the Santa Ana River Trail, including the Brookhurst substation. This example did receive opposition at the previous meeting. This example includes 4 parcels, and as I mentioned, along Brookhurst Street. The current zoning is residential agriculture with the general plan designation of public. So the amendment would change the designation to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Our next example are more Southern California Edison sites with the Smith Farms and Moon Valley Nursery below. This example includes 2 parcels between Hamilton and Bouchard Street. The existing zoning designation is residential agriculture with a general plan designation of public. So the amendment would change the designation to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Example 8 are Southern California Edison sites that are located along the Santa Ana River Trail. This includes 1 parcel just north of Hamilton. The parcel is currently zoned general commercial with a general plan designation of public. So the amendment would change the designation to public, semi-public to match a general plan. Our example number 9 would be more Southern California Edison sites, again with nurseries below. This example includes 5 parcels that are all south of Garfield. It runs parallel with Garfield, but just south. The existing zoning designations are low-density residential and residential agriculture. The general plan designation is public, So the amendment would change the designation to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Our next example are Southern California Edison sites, again located along the Santa Ana River Trail or channel. It includes the Ellis substation as well as additional nurseries. This amendment would change the zoning designation from single-family residential to public, semi-public. So here's the existing zoning designation, and this example includes 9 parcels. And then here's what the proposed would be, again, changing it to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Example 11 is the Frontier Communications Office. This site is located off of Bolsa Chica Street. This includes 1 parcel. The existing zone is general commercial with a general plan designation of public, semi-public with an underlying designation of general commercial. The zoning map amendment would change the designation of the site to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Our next example is the railroad that runs parallel with Gothard Street. It is just located east of Gothard. This example includes 6 parcels, and it runs from Ellis Avenue to Ettinger Avenue. This example did also receive a lot of opposition at the last meeting. However, the opposition was related to the OCSD easement that is just adjacent to what this project entails. This project is not in correlation with that. So here are the existing zoning designations. The existing railroad is industrial general. The amendment would change the zone to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Our next example we have is a parcel that's located within a neighborhood used for drainage and also identified as a walkway. The parcel is located between Manitoba Lane and Delaware Street. The existing zoning designation is low-density residential with a general plan designation of public. And the zoning map amendment would change the zoning designation to public, semi-public to match the general plan. Our last example is 2 railroad parcels at Springdale Street. This example also received opposition at the previous meeting. The railroad parcel to the left is zoned industrial limited. The parcel to the right is zoned low-density residential. Both parcels have a public general plan designation. So the amendment would change the zoning designation to public, semi-public to match a general plan. So with that, staff has received 33 inquiries regarding tonight's request, and all correspondence received has been attached to the staff report, either as correspondence or as late correspondence, depending on when we received it. So with that, staff recommends approval based on the findings that the zoning map amendment is consistent with the general plan, its goals and policies. It's necessary in order to comply with the California Government Code Section 65860. The proposed amendments will also address nonconformities and bring parcels into compliance with the general plan, and that the project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15183. So this concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Welsh. We look like we have some questions. I'll start with Commissioner Wood.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is, the current zoning code no longer has the RA zoning designation, correct?
Correct. We do have a, I don't know what you would call it, but it's like a supplemental document.
It's a supplement to the code. So, sorry, Maddie, but
No, go ahead.
Since we do have RA zoning on our zoning maps, the RA zoning district still exists, but it's a carryover from the old zoning ordinance. But it still does exist.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And my other question was, on parcels within the Edison easements that are operating as nurseries, if it's changed to the public, semi-public zoning designation, the nurseries don't seem to be listed there. What's going to happen with those?
The nurseries can remain. They would be considered non-conforming, but as long as they're operating, they can remain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wood. Commissioner Adam?
Thanks, Matt. A question on the railroads. Are those city-owned, and then there's a right-of-way or easement, or are those owned by the railroad themselves?
They are not city-owned.
Their own?
They are owned, I believe, by the railroad.
Okay, and then on Edison stuff, Edison owns most of the stuff shown. Are they the owner, underlying fee owner?
Correct. Southern California Edison owns 22 or 21 of the parcels in tonight's request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes, just a sequel to what Commissioner Commissioner Adam talked about regarding the nurseries. If one were to leave and another one were to come in, they could, even though they're non-conforming, they could still remain as nurseries?
Yes, there is a non-conforming section in our zoning code, so they would have to comply with that. But correct, the nursery use can continue.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could comment, though, if one nursery went out, there would have to be a new lease negotiated with Edison, and at that point, when they have no lessee, they could deny any future lease to even though it's the same use. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be up to the property owner, so yeah.
Any more questions by the commissioners?
I have one.
Oh, you have another one?
One more, sorry. So this was raised in multiple meetings. Most of these parcels are long and linear, and they don't really make for good secondary uses or a future use, let's say, but there are some that are larger in scale, and questions about some generational use from now. Let's say a SE, this is ridiculous to even say, but abandoned some very large, parcels. It would have the underlying, then it would revert back to whatever this public PS zoning, correct? But wouldn't that be something that the city and city council in that time could say that this is, we have these new lands that SE has abandoned, and this would be the opportune time to go through a general plan process to figure out what to really do with those? Is that something that the city at that time could do?
That is possible, yeah, or more likely, the property owner, if they were to sell it, may initiate it on their own to make the property more marketable, perhaps.
Oh, okay, understood. Okay, thank you.
Okay, with no more questions, do we have some speakers tonight?
We do have several speakers. If you could, please come down when your name is called, line up behind each microphone, given that there are several of you. I'm going to call you all down. Dan Jameson, Richard Rebden, and again, apologies if I mispronounce your name. Lori Rebd, Dee Bruntage, Cheryl DeMarco, John Garlington.
All right, step on up to that microphone. Let's get two up there and
There's one person ahead of me.
Oh, okay. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. Whoever's up can just
Yep.
speak. Just make sure you
Fire
say your
away.
name at the end.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Dan Jameson. I live on Spa Drive in Huntington Beach, the very northwest corner of the city. I live immediately next to that railroad section that originally fed the Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station. And I understand what's happening here tonight. I understand you have to update the zoning codes and so forth. It doesn't really change the nature of that railroad, which runs right behind my property, which is now open space. But it does cause some concern when people hear about these utility sites or industrial type sites that have been left open. Because what happened in 2017, I got a notice that the city was proposing to store 900 cars on that 70-foot wide section right behind my fence and all the neighbors' fence, probably 100 homes along that whole section directly on that railroad right-of-way. We had a couple weeks to get down here to the zoning administrators meeting and to chase them off that idea. Turns out they didn't own the land and it wasn't zoned for car storage. So we're a little bit nervous when we hear about zoning changes, but I understand what you're doing tonight. I don't have any problem with it. I don't think there's anything going to happen back there. What I have done with my wife and many other community volunteers is we've sort of adopted that site back there. We call it the Monarch Nature Trail now. We've cleaned it up, taken care of some graffiti, put in some native plants. We've got volunteers there the first Saturdays of every month coming in and helping out. So it's in really good shape now, and we'd hate to see anything happen to that site other than open space. It's a great trail. People are back there all the time walking their dogs. So for the future, just please keep it open, and I appreciate you folks slowing this down and letting us come down here and talk. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hello, Commissioners. Richard Reeb spoke at the last meeting and put a video presentation. I thought it might be a good idea. I'm talking about the parcel. Manny, could we go back to the first one for a second? Thanks. I just wanted to show you a little bit about what has happened in our community over the years and hopefully impress upon you how much the change in zoning could really impact negatively our community. So this picture is basically from before 2015. We moved into our home in 1986, and it was like this for up until 2015. We never had any issues with Edison doing anything. Then if we could start to go to the next pictures. Then in 2015, you can see there's rocks started to put down here. Edison started to lay down thousands of tons of rock so they could drive trucks over them. We can go to the next one. You can see all of this rock now is in place so Edison could drive. There's more mounds of rocks that they were adding to it. So we go to the next one. Then they started bringing the trucks in. I don't know how good the picture is there, but they started bringing trucks in, and they originally were going to use this as a laydown yard. If we could go to the next one. What we deal with when Edison
Okay, as you can see, the dust cloud
regularly
that permeates the entire area still exists when they put the rocks throughout here.
If we could go to the next one. Obviously, nighttime operations, everybody in the community, you hear the rocks constantly. The beep, 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 beep of the noises of whenever those little machines back up things. If we could keep going through it. It's day and night. And it is our belief that the residential agriculture, losing residential agriculture, significantly takes away the protection that we at least felt like we've somehow gotten help over the years. I know that if you look at it, once again, they had all these logs in here. Now, everything that you've seen, Edison never pulled a permit. There was never one permit to do any of this stuff in my backyard. And that has just been terrible. We've had 2 or 3 occasions, matter of fact, in 2015, I think 17, and then again in 2019. And in each case, when Edison came in, put their equipment in, had trucks, we had to deal with the city, and basically it's taken maybe 2 years. In 2015, it took about 1.5 years to get them out. In 2019, once again, 1.5 years or 2 years of fighting this, so I don't live with this in my backyard. Thank you very much. Any help you can do to save residential agriculture and protect us from this type of abusive use of the land, we in our community would very much appreciate.
Thank you very much.
For the future, can we make sure we speak into the microphone? Otherwise, it won't be recorded for the video and for people watching at home.
Okay, my name is Lori Reeb. I live on the same property as Richard, who just spoke. And although this is being presented by the planning department as a cleanup on paper, it is anything but a cleanup and the effect that it's going to have on us. There is absolutely no way a neighborhood should have to have public, semi-public, and the possibility of having a cemetery, a nursery, a shelter, any of the things that qualify under public, semi-public. I realize that there is part of that code that says power lines that would apply to public, semi-public. However, it leaves it open to all of those other uses. So when the leases for those nurseries runs out in 2 years, Edison has 30 acres 30 acres that are being rezoned just from Adams Avenue to Hamilton Avenue in what is the public, semi-public now, you guys wanting to change that. So somebody messed up somewhere in 2017 when they redid the plan, and now all the residents are supposed to suffer the consequences? I don't think so. I think that if anybody else lived there and it was your house, somebody could work with the city and figure out a way to protect all of that land so it's open space. Because if you look at any power line throughout the city, underneath those high power lines is open green space. And all we're asking is to maintain that same open green space that has been there before. Throughout the whole city, Southern California, Edison, there's about 130 acres, if you count all the parcels that were attached to the documentation. Strictly nurseries makes 130 acres. That's a lot of land that all of a sudden we're giving carte blanche to Edison or whoever else to lease out and do whatever they want to that meets that criteria. That is not compatible or consistent with a neighborhood. So, although the city has stated that the intentions are for them to allow the nurseries to stay, there is not one single designation in that public, semi-public use that allows for nurseries or encourages that. Again, all we're asking is for you guys to make sure that that stays as open space and maintains the character of our neighborhoods. I believe that the notices that come out have not been as transparent as the city could have them be when people receive them. It says there's going to be a zoning change and it's just a housekeeping item cleanup. If you said to that person, hey, what's on the other side of your fence could now be a cemetery or any one of those things, I don't think that they would say that's just a housekeeping item. And I ask for your help in protecting our land and our property values and hope you would consider it as if you lived there. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rebd.
My name is Dee Brundage, and I live 2 doors from Lori and Richard. I've been in my home for 53 years, and I have so enjoyed the fact that the backyard has been this green zone and not used for any type of public display or Edison taking over. I just look at the value of my home, and I'm thinking if that noise and all of that is rumbling going back behind my wall, you could probably drop several $100s off of the value of my home. And I would truly appreciate if you would think it through and consider the neighborhood that you're involving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brundage. Next speaker.
Cheryl DeMarco. I have presented some emails to you guys already on this matter and on previous public hearings regarding it. It is a concern. Whenever you change zoning, it's going to affect the properties around it. I agree with Lori. I think I received one of the notices, not on this matter, but on another one, because this has been a process that's gone through the city. The notice I received initially made it seem like it was no big deal. And the property next to me that got changed to PS at the last round, they could put a 50-foot building 40 feet away from my house, from my property line. So it is a concern. And most of these are, this round of changes, they're utility type properties. And I think the nursery component is huge. And I do think there's going to be some opportunity that Southern California Edison can take advantage of by us changing it and getting rid of all of these little nurseries. And they're important to our economy and who we are and where we are in the beach communities. I don't really think I have much else to say to you guys because I've given you quite a big email to read. But thank you so much for your decision and take this under consideration.
Thank you very much.
Last call for John Garlington. Okay. John Garlington? All right, then we have no further speakers.
Okay, no more speakers. Let me turn the page here. Coffee incident up there. Okay, commissioners will now deliberate on this item. Let's see, do we have anybody that would like to speak? Commissioner Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, understand some of the concerns as property abuts yours property. My father worked for Southern California Edison for 30 years, and I obtained a document from Southern California Edison which states in their right-of-way, which exists in most of these cases, buildings other than permanent structures, both above ground and underground, are prohibited. So that's why they are nurseries. Edison does not allow structures in their right-of-way, period. So it's very much a shame that they abused some of the property behind you for a few years, but it sounds like the city did deal with it. Probably should have never gotten there, but I don't think there's as much of a fear as you may think of something being built on that property because it is prohibited. I've seen all of these easements that go way beyond the limits of Huntington Beach throughout Southern California, and they just don't let people put stuff on it, period. It's their property, and those power lines must be clear. They must be able to maintain them. They have trucks, you've probably seen them, that go out, used to go out, the insulator washers they're called. They go out and squirt some of the equipment down to clean them. They just don't let people put structures on them. So I don't think what we're trying to do is as much of a detriment as some of you may think. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kennedy?
Thank you, Chairman Twining. A couple things. I may be wrong, Commissioner Wood, but I believe I've seen mini stores, self-storage underneath some Southern California Edison easements off the 55 by Catella. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. So that may be an internal document stated, but by no definition is that the law. It may be self-governance, but the concern is real. I'm on board with the fact that probably the noticing, and I've been on record as saying the city noticing in regards to the housekeeping is completely in need of an update. If I was a property owner and I received something that said you may have an adverse effect happening to a property because of adjacent zoning changes, I would show up. If I receive a housekeeping, and I asked you guys to send me a notice, and you guys made some small changes when we were going through this, when you tried to get us to vote on 147 properties in one vote on an Excel spreadsheet. And thank goodness we raised our hands and said we're not doing it, and you've broken them out like this. But if the notices are still going out like that, it's just a housekeeping, you are not doing the citizens anything that's fair whatsoever. I can imagine in 2017 when the general land plan was being changed and contemplated, the noticing was at a bare minimum. With that said, what number is the Edison, the one that we just looked at with all the trucks, and what number is the Monarch Trail?
Monarch's number 14.
Number 14. And the, what number, was that?
I believe it's number 6. Let me pull that up.
The Edison.
Example 6.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to get clarity on that. So, and although, even if they don't allow buildings, there are other uses, that, like I said to Ms. Madeline over here, if a nursery goes out and there's no continuity, Edison does not have to renew its lease to another nursery. There's other uses that they could renew a lease or grant a new lease that might not be as favorable as a nursery. There's no protection of a nursery. Moon Nursery goes out, it goes dark. Somebody else comes in willing to pay more for flat land or whatever the case may be, and it might have an adverse effect. So it is a problem, and I feel for the residents here. I think Chair Twining is going to make a supplemental motion here. So with that said, I just wanted to kind of be on the record as saying I understand where you're coming from. The noticing needs to be reworked in fairness to the residents. We're here to represent the residents. These people have worked hard to earn these homes. And yes, if I've got trucks behind my house and beepers going on, and none of it was ever permitted. I haven't followed up because they raised that last time when we stayed the vote. You know, I would hope there's been code enforcement violations, because I can tell you, if you vary from the codes here and you're a resident, they're all over you. They want to fine you. They're putting the pressure on you. But if big SoCal Edison comes rolling along and they're doing all these things that are not allowed, and it's just like, man, can you put a stop on it? It takes them 6 months. That's not acceptable. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just kind of speculating. With that said, I just wanted to make those comments on the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Kennedy. And Commissioner Kennedy is exactly right. With no further public comments and all the comments from geez.
Sorry, my
People
apologies.
pop up. Okay, stand by.
My apologies.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennedy, it's not our first rodeo discussing the notice or anything like that. I just have a general question. Have you tried or attempted to reach out to staff to maybe give suggestions on the actual design or the actual wording? Like not,
Yes.
not here, but like in their office and whatnot.
I made my position clear here. If they can't take notes here, I'm happy to meet with you anytime, anywhere. Just let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
I was real clear, though, sir.
Commissioner Adam.
Yeah, I've asked this before, but I think I want to make sure I clarify a couple things. So Edison activities that go on in the backyard, again, I think it's a shame, and but we've talked about it before, that changing the zoning to match the general plan, will that have any effect on what Edison does for their own operations today, tomorrow, and in the future with their activities that they call their own activities, not a leased activity, but just their activity? Will this zoning have any effect on that?
No. Edison sites are protected under a general order through the state of California. So the local zoning, regardless of the zoning designation, is preempted. So it would not apply.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need.
Okay. Commissioner Rodriguez, you done? You have something else?
Sorry, my apologies. Just along the same lines as Commissioner Adams said, I wasn't here for the initial meeting last time. I did spend a couple times reviewing the video twice. And I mean, I do feel for the residents. I thank you for coming and speaking out. But ultimately, I think if Edison tried to do something else with the property, they still have to come back to Planning Commission, correct, staff members? Or?
Yeah, if they want to change the general plan or zoning for a use that's not for SCE.
So I think there's an additional protection there. Like Maddie was explaining, this is, I know we don't like to use the word housekeeping or cleanup, but really the intention is just for the zoning to match the general plan. And I'm going to be just supporting this agenda item, just because we've been here before, we've discussed this a couple times, and if Edison really wanted to change the actual zoning, or let's say they wanted to underground the power lines, I don't know if that's even possible in the future, they still have to come back to Planning Commission, and that's an additional protection, additional layer of protection for the residents that live right behind. So I thank you for coming, and otherwise, if there's any other commissioners that have that difference of opinion, I'm happy to hear that. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Just one last thing, kind of piggybacking on Commissioner Rodriguez over there. When Edison took it from green space to tons of rock, storage, trucks, transit, was that allowable? No. Well, let them answer. Was that allowable under the zoning?
So, do you want, okay.
Yeah, if it's part of their operations as a utility, they would be covered under that general order. I know there was discussion between the city and Edison at that point, and I think through that discussion, I think Edison understood that there was a community concern, and it appears that they made a decision to basically vacate the site or vacate those uses from that site.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more questions here from the commissioners? All right, so we're going to be making a motion here on this item, but I want to make a substitute motion first. due to there's not a community, a community need is not demonstrated for a change right now. So I would like to withdraw out of this particular item, and this is my substitute motion. Let's remove example 6, which is the 4 parcels on Edison Substation. Remove example 9, underneath the power lines. Example 12, which is Roan Street Railroad. And example 14, which is the Monarch Trail in North Huntington Beach. I would like to make a substitute motion to remove those 4 zone changes due to community need is not demonstrated to have to do that right now.
I would second that motion.
And just want to make sure, we're going to vote on this, but we have the ability to vote on the original motion, correct, after?
Yes, with these 4, I believe with these 4 properties or these 4 zones removed. We're going to leave those alone.
You're making a motion to remove them?
Yes.
And then there's still the ability to bring up the original motion, correct, if this doesn't pass?
Correct. If it fails, you can make another motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Don?
He seconded it,
I
right?
second that motion, Chairman.
Motion fails. We have 3 nays. Commissioners Adam, Rodriguez, and Wood voting no. Commissioners Acosta, Galvan, and Pellman are absent. Motion fails.
Okay. All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the original motion with all the sites in.
I have a general comment,
Oh, sure. Sorry, I can- hold on a
to say, I'd like to explain the reason why I voted no. And the reason is, I don't feel it's fair that we get to pick and choose which one is which, because ultimately there's going to be some neighbors that will not agree. And so we're supporting some projects, but not the others. And so that kind of leaves a lot of wiggle room for some residents to be happy with what happens today, some residents not. And like I said, there's additional protections in place. And so I just wanted to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to hear why I voted for no. No, thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Sorry. Motion passes. We have 2 nays, Chair Twining and Vice Chair Kennedy. 2 absences, Commissioners Acosta, Galvan, and Pellman. Motion carries.
The Planning Commission's action on this item will be forwarded to the City Council.
Here comes the long one, right?
Okay, I know our next item is going to be the maintenance operation at Kettler. Just trying to find it on my agenda here. So stand by 1 second. Okay.
Chair, it's on the top of your 3rd page of your script.
Aha. Okay. Next is an appeal to the zoning administrator's approval of a conditional use permit of 23014, the HBCSD Maintenance and Operations Building. Commissioners, please state your disclosures regarding this item. We'll start with Commissioner Rodriguez.
I visited the site, and I also met with the applicant and the school district, well, school district in general.
I have no disclosures.
I visited the site, toured the site with the district, and I've also met with a couple of the neighbors and talked to them, and I've also met with staff and spoke with them about this.
No disclosures.
I visited the site, just drove around, familiar with the observations from the outside looking at, but I did not enter the property.
Staff, may we have the staff presentation at this time?
Yes, Senior Planner Madeline Welch will give the presentation.
Okay, thank you. The item before you is an appeal of the proposed Huntington Beach City School District Maintenance and Operations Building, CUP 23-014. Oh, sorry. Okay. So the project site is 4.8 acres and consists of an approximately 21-foot high, 34,704 square foot existing building that formerly operated as Kettler Elementary School and is now operating as the Huntington Beach City School District offices with maintenance, repair, and storage occurring in the rear parking lot. There are 119 existing parking spaces on site with an additional 14 stalls proposed with this project. The surrounding uses include single-family residential to the east, west, and north, with sports fields to the south of the subject property. The request for the conditional use permit is to construct a 7,510 square foot maintenance and operations building at an overall height of 17 feet and 6 inches at the southwest area of the site. The Huntington Beach Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance permits maintenance and service facilities subject to the review and approval of a conditional use permit from the zoning administrator if the property is not city-owned. This site is owned by the school district, and therefore a conditional use permit is required. According to the applicant's narrative, the hours of operation of the school district office building is 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and the requested hours of operation for the maintenance and operation building would be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Here is the proposed site plan. The proposed building is located along the western property line at the rear of the site. Dimensions are included on the site plan to demonstrate the distance of the proposed building to the nearest residential buildings on either side of the property. To the west, the nearest residence is approximately 43 feet and 6 inches. To the east, the nearest resident building is approximately 287 feet. The side setback for this zone is 10 feet, and the proposed building is at 22 feet and 6 inches. And the maximum height within this zone for properties that are abutting residential within 45 feet of the boundary would be 18 feet in height, maximum allowed. And this building is proposed at 17 feet, 6 inches. Here's the proposed floor plan. The entrance points are demonstrated with the arrows there, which face the parking lot away from the nearest residential properties. The use of the proposed building will consist of primarily warehouse storage with workshop maintenance areas as well as an office space for school district staff. The floor plan is color-coded to demonstrate the areas for each use. And here are the elevations. And so staff worked with the applicant in adding architectural elements along the western facade, which is the facade nearest residential properties. Some of those architectural elements include faux windows, some paneling below the windows, trellises, elements to best work with the applicant and also break up the appearance of the building and the facade to be more compatible with surrounding area in the existing building on site. And then the item was presented to the Design Review Board at a special meeting on May 23rd, 2024. Public comments were received at the meeting regarding opposition to the proposed use, as well as the project's location on the site. And here are the recommended conditions of approval that the Design Review Board recommended to the zoning administrator. So the first recommendation was to move the location of the proposed building 20 feet to the east. The DRB felt that the building should be as far away from residential properties as possible. And then the next recommendation was adding a block wall along the entire western property line at 8 feet in height instead of 6 feet in height. And then they also recommended that this wall be either landscaped, a decorative material, graffiti resistant, something to enhance the visual appearance of the wall and also avoid graffiti on the wall. The next recommendation was to add lighting. There is, between the neighborhood and to the park just south of the site, there is a walkway adjacent to the proposed building. So the Design Review Board recommended lighting be added to the walkway that's used for accessing the park. And then the next recommendation was to propose substantial landscaping between the proposed building and the adjacent residential properties. And this was to ensure landscaping buffer, and that also that the landscaping be mature at the time of installation. And to clarify, mature would mean 36-inch box trees, substantial buffer. And then the last recommendation was that the material on the western facade of the building be replaced with a material that's more compatible with residential structures. They did leave that up to the discretion of planning staff, but recommended something similar to stucco, brick, something more compatible. And the item was then presented to the zoning administrator on June 19th, 2024, in which residents attended and expressed concerns with the proposed project. The residents' concerns were primarily regarding the proposed block wall along the western property line at 8 feet, the location of the building, the notice of exemption document that was used as the CEQA analysis for the project, potential noise impacts that the proposed project may incur, and significant grade differential due to adding dirt to the site, that the school district had added dirt to the site. So we are going to go through the residents' concerns just to sort of indicate the process through the zoning administrator meeting. So with regards to the proposed block wall along the western property line at a height of 8 feet, the zoning administrator did consider the concern. The resident expressed that they would have preferred it at 6 feet because the grading of the residential properties are lower than the subject site. So the zoning administrator eliminated that condition and revised it to be at 6 feet in height only where the project area is, not along the entire western property line. And then the next concern with regards to location of the building. So staff did work with the applicant in incorporating elements to soften the western facade and enhance its visual appearance. And with the side setback requirement of 10 feet, the applicant is proposing 22.5 instead of the required 10 feet. And it is also limited to a maximum of 18 feet. And so the zoning administrator, that recommendation was eliminated given those circumstances. And then the notice of exemption document. So the site, based on the applicant's description of the site and the notice of exemption document, the site was already operating with maintenance use within the parking lot. And so construction of a maintenance and operation building would bring the site further into compliance by conducting the maintenance use entirely within a building rather than operating outdoors. And then the potential noise impacts generated from the proposed use. The zoning administrator did add conditions of approval that all work be conducted entirely within the building to mitigate any potential noise impacts. The site is required to also adhere to the Huntington Beach Noise Ordinance. And there were some concern with regards to air conditioning and mechanical equipment generating additional noise. And the applicant did confirm, and the site plan demonstrates that the mechanical equipment is located on the east side of the building away from the residential properties. And then with regards to the fifth concern regarding the grade differential, so the plans are, the grading is reviewed during the grading plan, and it is a code requirement that there be a maximum grade differential of 2 feet, and that grade differential is measured from the top of curb along Dorset Drive to the finished floor of the building. So if there is the case that the grade is different, or the grade differential is greater than 2 feet, that would get resolved during the grading plan review. So there would not, a grade differential greater than 2 feet would not be permitted, as it is a code requirement. The parking for the site, there's 103 spaces required for the district office, 16 spaces for the maintenance and operation building, which is a total of 119 feet. I'm sorry, and 119 spaces. And the provided parking, there's 119 on site and the applicant is proposing an additional 14 spaces, providing a surplus of parking. So the use is required to comply with operational conditions of approval, and the operations shall be conducted entirely within the interior of the building. The site is not anticipated to generate noise, safety, or compatibility issues, as the request is consistent with the public, semi-public zoning designation. So with that, the Planning Commission may either uphold the zoning administrator's decision with or without modification, or take an alternative action. And the Planning Commission may approve the proposed project based on the following: that it is consistent with the public, semi-public land use designation, that it is compatible with the surrounding land uses with conditions imposed upon the proposed development and its operations, and that it is in compliance with the zoning ordinance and applicable provisions of the municipal code, which will not result in significant impacts to the site and surrounding area. So with that, it concludes my presentation. I'd like to note the applicant, as well as their CEQA representative, is available to answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Welsh. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the staff? Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman Twining. Thank you for the presentation. Now, you referenced some of the concerns. One of the concerns from the Design Review Board, not a concern, a recommendation, was to move the building 20 feet. And I saw in the applicant's response, they didn't want to adhere to that recommendation. Does that still stand, that we made a recommendation through the DRB to move it, and they're saying no?
We made the recommendation, so the Design Review Board made that recommendation, and we carried it to the zoning administrator. So we carried that recommendation over, and the zoning administrator eliminated that recommended condition.
Okay, so it's almost like deja vu from the first thing that we voted on. Again, I'm astounded that one person, a zoning administrator, has the unilateral autonomy to make these decisions that impact a massive amount of people, their residential holdings, their property values, and to disregard, the fact that a design review board, which is a body, makes a recommendation that would probably quell some of the fears, maybe the residents, maybe not, to move it. And rather than letting us vote on that aspect, one person makes the decision to remove that, overriding the recommendation of a body. That is astounding to me. I find that unacceptable. Secondly, in the conditional suggested findings for the exempt from CEQA, you guys cite 15301 and 15303. When I reviewed 15301, it's referencing the verbiage of minor alterations on existing structures involving negligible or no expansion. So I don't know why you referenced 15301. Maybe 15303 could apply, but 15301, from what I saw, did not apply. As a matter of fact, it was contrary to what you're trying to, get pushed through here. The other thing on the conditional use permits, or somewhere in citing, again, land use 1D has been cited again, compatible, proportion, and scale. I find this to be completely non-compatible, out of proportion, and not fitting of scale. And then you cite land use 2, new development, preserve and enhance a distinct Surf City identity. Well, nothing speaks Surf City identity more than a prefab manufactured steel metal building in a coastal zone. That is just, it's ridiculous. So I'll leave, and also in the resolution, I saw resolution, I think it's 1123-24. Again, the resolution cites minor alterations of an existing public structure. I don't know how you can say, you can take 3 shipping containers, cargo containers, and all of a sudden have a building there and deem it a minor alteration of an existing structure. It just doesn't sit well with me. Maybe somebody can talk me off.
If I may just, Vice Chair Kennedy, this is Jill. This is Jill, Deputy Deputy Director. I just wanted to opine with regards to the zoning administrator's authority. The municipal code and our zoning code does give authority to the zoning administrator to make decisions on certain applications, such as this application, which is a conditional use permit, similar to granting authority to the Planning Commission to make rulings on appeals of zoning administrators' actions, as well as some final actions on other applications. So it is written in our municipal code, and we are following those regulations that have been adopted by former council, and it's written into our ordinances to grant the authority to a zoning administrator. It is similar to other cities as well. Other cities have boards, other cities have individuals acting and exercising discretion on applications. So when a recommendation is given by staff or a design review board, that discretion is exercised by that body, similar to yourselves as a commission, to either accept a recommendation or to decide how you want to use that recommendation in taking action on an application. So I just wanted to kind of cover how that authority was granted to.
No, I understand, ma'am. I read that it is in the code. I guess I should have started my statement by saying I'm 100% against that kind of language in a code and that kind of power centered around one person. So maybe down the road somebody can review some of the code, because just because it's code and written into municipal law or whatever the verbiage you want to use doesn't mean it's right and just, doesn't mean it shouldn't be changed or reviewed or contested. I'm here to make light of those things. That's why I sit on this planning commission, because if I don't agree with something, I'm going to let it be known, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, whether I'm disdained or applauded for my actions. It doesn't matter to me. If I think that something needs to be articulated in public, I'm going to say it.
Ms. Welsh, could you put up the DRB recommendations on the board there, please? I just want to go through them as best as I actually have them in front of me. There looks like there's six. Looks like there's six of them. I just want to ask, and I hold the DRB in high esteem. I was actually on the DRB for a year, and it's a lot of really smart guys. Commissioner Rodriguez is on it now. So one of their recommendations was to move the location of the proposed building 20 feet to the east, and that got denied?
No, so we carry all of the recommendations that the design review board made, we took to the zoning administrator. So that recommended condition was struck from
Okay. How about the proposed block wall, 8-foot height instead of 6?
Yes, so a resident expressed concern with it being 8 feet and preferred it to be 6 feet at the zoning administrator meeting. So the zoning administrator modified that condition to require it only be 6 feet, and instead of it being along the entire western property line, it will only be where the project area is.
Okay. C is the block wall, again, along the western property line shall be decorated block wall, graffiti-resistant material landscape, subject to planning staff approval. What happened to that one?
That one is still it is in the condition 1A.
Okay. How about the lighting along the walkway?
That is included. The zoning administrator added that the applicant provide a lighting plan for the project to ensure there's no spillage onto adjacent residential properties.
Okay, so that would be the ramp. Would that be
Correct.
the ramp down into the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you. And then the landscaping between the proposed building and the residential properties, is that acceptable?
That was included as well, and the applicant would be required to provide a landscape plan demonstrating substantial landscaping as a buffer.
Okay, and then the material on the western elevation of the building shall be changed from the proposed metal to residential type material. Was that approved?
That was removed.
That was removed?
Yes.
Okay. I too have very similar questions to Commissioner Kennedy. We actually studied this material pretty much all day today, and I don't see a prefab metal building complying with the surf city character, so I just want to go on record as saying that. I would think that in the DRB review, I think that, and again, Commissioner Kennedy said this, and I just want to go on record too, is that a move to of that building 20 feet east might have quelled a lot of the neighbors' issues. although there's many more, but I think that might have helped. So anyway, I'm just going to leave it at that. I have other comments, and I'll wait until later. I want to call on Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Chair Twining. I want to just clarify. I'm a liaison from the Planning Commission to the Design Review Board, and I want to just point out that we've spent maybe as a body talking about this project that came to us maybe about 25 minutes, and ultimately the reason why we the proposition to move the building 20 feet was included in this was because it was some of the residents' concerns. Now, this was actually before I toured the site with Chair Twining. Him and I went together. We met with the school district. We sat in the same conference room. We walked the site together. And there's actually a reason why the building is being proposed at where it is compared to where the residents want it. And at this point, I want to give that opportunity to the school district, which I'm sure they'll come up and they'll explain the reasoning as to why. And so there's actually a very detailed reason why. And so later on, if you can come, the school district can come down and explain that, that would be great. Space is limited, and ultimately, the fact that it was being proposed to the planning, to the zoning administrator, and then it was brought back to the planning commission. I mean, I'm not a structural engineer. I don't know about design or whatnot. I'm just there to ensure that the residents are being heard, and that is the reason why I believe most of the folks from the design review board put it as a recommendation, right? And so that is pretty much what I wanted to convey is that it all comes down to the concerns of the residents, putting it forward, letting us analyze it, letting us go and walk the site, and ultimately making the right decision for both parties. And that's ultimately what we're here for. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez. Commissioner Wood.
Thank you, Chairman Twining. Question maybe when the applicant comes up here is whether or not it was ever considered to put the building in the rear of the property adjacent to the baseball fields and not up against the residents.
Thank you. Commissioner Adam?
Thank you, Chair Twining. I have a couple questions on the CEQA process, and I want to make sure I understand who's the lead. Now, I believe that the district is the lead with their CEQA document. They're the ones who determined it's exempt. Is that correct?
That's correct. The school district served as the lead agency and prepared the notice of exemption document.
And what's the city's role to review that? Does the city review it to confirm those findings, or at least weigh in, or if they had a disagreement, that process?
Yes, the commission has to make its own CEQA determination before it approves the project, before it acts on the project.
Okay. Because I too have concerns. I mean, I understand the residents' perspective, especially if you live there and you don't see a building and you see line of sight and there's pass through to the park and to the Edison. So putting a building there creates, shadows. It creates a lack of line of sight in that area. But I also have concerns about the verbiage that was presented in terms of the uses and calling it an extension of existing uses, or saying that they've already been doing these activities and they're just going to put them in a building now. So I wanted to know that from the city's perspective, our maintenance. Ongoing maintenance, is that allowed on the property through this existing CUP, or has that just been done without oversight? I understand the city doesn't have a lot of oversight on a state property, right? This is another issue where they kind of have their own jurisdiction, correct?
Correct.
I used to work for school districts, and whenever we were told the city wanted something, we would just tell them no. That was the standard practice. But being on the side here now, it's different. So I want to ask, what is the city's oversight role from a maintenance perspective of activity? Do they have the ability to say what they can and can't do on the property?
The school typically goes through the Department of State Architect
DSA.
for approvals. Yeah, in this case, they decided to go through the city, and the applicant did put together a narrative. That's one of the late communications that kind of gives you a history of how the uses have evolved at that site. So this would be a good question to ask the applicant once again when they come down.
Okay. Well, I guess we're ready, I'm ready for the applicant when they want to come down. Thank you.
Any more comments? Commissioner Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for those questions, Commissioner Adam. One last perspective I just want to put out there. This maintenance operation that was in office, if you're a resident and you bought a home there and it was a school, then the school went dark and it became a school district office, it's kind of a passive substitute. You can live with it. This maintenance operation that's going to come out of nowhere is really, I read why they want to do it to be close to where they serve. So with no care for the residents, they want the convenience. My recommendation would be you find something over in the industrial area and you put your location over there and you drive to the area you serve. It's about a whopping 5-6 miles. Be a good neighbor to the residents that invested all their hard-earned dollars to live in a nice neighborhood next to a school, but the school went dark. And now we've got a passive use, and now we want to put something that's going to attract noise, it's going to attract activity, it's going to be completely abhorrent to the surrounding, community. But there's no concern about that. So I think it's a selfish move on the part of the school district. And if they were good neighbors, they would look at another location, make their maintenance operation in an area where it didn't matter, and then drive and service the areas that they service. That would be fair. And, how about the convenience to the residents? Look at it that way.
Any more questions from the commissioners? All right. Well, with that, do we have some public comments?
We have a lot of speakers.
Okay.
So please come down, line up behind each microphone. When you speak, please state your name. I'm going to call the first half, and then later I will call the rest. Mark Manstoff, Dr. Paul Morrow, Brian Whitmore, Malia Durand, Amory Hansen, Mark Curie, and Robert Granger.
Good evening. My name is Paul Morrow. I'm a resident here of Huntington Beach for about 50 years. I was the former principal of Sowers Middle School, Moffett Elementary School, and Marina High School for about 35 of the years. So I'm pretty well invested in our community. I have 10,000 wives and 10,000 husbands and 20,000 children in this city. Love every minute of it. It's a great place to work. Currently, I serve on the school board. On this board of trustees, I'm in my 3rd term and feel very privileged to be able to do that. For over 3 years, the Huntington Beach City School District has diligently searched for a new home for our maintenance operations building. We've explored partnerships with neighboring schools and even the city itself, but after an exhaustive search for a new location, the district office site emerged as the most responsible choice for our limited resources. Our maintenance and operation team plays a vital role in keeping our schools safe and functional. They maintain facilities, ensure grounds are well kept, and support school activities. This new building will finally provide them with a dedicated space for their work currently done in the open parking lot. It'll also house equipment, supplies, basic materials, and for classrooms and custodians. Let me emphasize, this is not a large-scale maintenance facility. We don't have mechanics on staff, nor will there be fueling stations on site. Our operation is small, and we rely on external services for vehicle repairs. This new building will significantly reduce noise by moving these activities that you've mentioned earlier indoors instead of outdoors. As a public school district, we're very conscious of spending. We don't have mechanics on staff. Therefore, we're opting for city oversight, which is a more cost-effective and community-focused approach compared to the state process that you cited earlier. The reality is our district is underfunded. We need to be fiscally responsible, maximizing every dollar for student education. For 5 years, we've explored every avenue with neighboring districts, realtors, and even the Orange County Transportation Authority. Unfortunately, our current lease expires in April of 2025,
and the rent is projected to skyrocket. These increasing costs take away from crucial areas like technology updates, new instructional materials, and even air conditioning for our 4 schools that aren't yet air conditioned. Imagine for the price of rent, we could possibly hire 4 teachers to better improve the learning environment of our students. 4,700 students, that is. We believe it demonstrates a commitment to responsible stewardship. As a Board of Trustees member and a representative of our community, just as you are, I've personally walked the area designated for the building, heard the concerns, read every email from our neighbors, and we've worked hard to find workable solutions and feel that we now have a good plan to move forward. I'd just like to thank you for your care and concern for our districts. You're, after all, the leaders of our world in a few more years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Morrow.
Good evening, members of the Huntington Beach Planning Commission and community. My name is Mark Manstoff. I'm the Director of Facilities, Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation for the Huntington Beach City School District. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you here tonight about the proposed maintenance and operations facility to provide clarity on its purpose and operations. Our maintenance and operations team is a small but dedicated group of 14 individuals. This team is responsible for overseeing the maintenance of the school district facilities. Their primary duties include both routine and reactive maintenance to ensure that our schools are safe and functional for our students and staff. While our team handles day-to-day maintenance tasks, we hire subcontractors for larger or specialized projects that require expertise beyond our scope. Every morning, our team dispatches from the district office at Kettler to the school sites before students arrive. This allows the team to complete as much work as possible before the school day begins. From 2018 to 2022, the team was operating out of an unfinished section of the district office. In 2022, the district central kitchen was built and food service operations took over the space of the maintenance team was utilizing. Currently, the maintenance team is operating primarily out of sea containers in the parking lot, utilizing makeshift tables to complete their daily operations. These operations include painting, sawing, welding in the parking lot. The primary purpose of the maintenance and operations facility is to house the materials and supplies noted for our maintenance activities. In doing so, the building will provide a sound barrier, unlike the parking lot, for the existing operations. This proposed facility will centrally house the materials and tools required to allow our maintenance team to quickly, safely, and effectively address the curveballs that happen during a school day, being a power outage to a water leak. Our mission in Huntington Beach City School District is to create a community where learners thrive. By maintaining our facilities to the highest standards, we contribute to building a stronger community for Surf City, USA. This facility is essential in helping us achieve our mission and support our students and the future leaders of Huntington Beach. That's it for me. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Manstoff. Next speaker.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Brian Whitmore. I'm the President and CEO of Studio W Architects. We have been the architects providing architectural services for Huntington Beach City School District since 2016. And we got brought on along with the Measure Q process. So a lot of the projects, obviously, you've seen over the years here in Huntington Beach have been a result of our firm. I want to address a few things that have come up this evening, I think, as it pertains to some of the items that the planning commissioners had addressed. First and foremost, the district has the option to have the project approved by either the Department of the State Architect or the governing jurisdiction, in this case, the City of Huntington Beach. And this is really due to the nature of the project, the fact that this particular project does not house students. That's one of the reasons you don't see most of the projects obviously come forth, because those that do house students, it's required to meet Field Act compliance and, of course, DSA. One of the reasons, and really the foremost reason that the district wanted to take this project to the city, was to be transparent, to be a partner with the community, recognizing that it had this particular option on this project and other projects of this type. So some of the comments that have been made, I think, by the public saying that the district's trying to circumvent that process is truly false. One of the things that obviously we go through, and is very commonplace, is for the district to act as the authority for the CEQA process, because it has to do that on the projects that go to DSA. And so it chose to do that in this project, and we do have our representative from CEQA here to explain that as well. I want to talk just briefly about the placement of the building adjacent to the west property line, why it is where it is. Right now, it's actually almost twice what's required for it to be. There's a 10-foot setback required by the zoning ordinance. We have the building approximately 17 feet from that location. Part of that is to get some of that enhanced landscaping there. The easement, which is actually on the property of the district that accesses the park, we can't put the building on that easement, of course, so we have to bring that building back. I think moving it an additional 20 feet, our concern is that becomes a no man's land. That becomes an area in the back of the building that either becomes an attractive nuisance or potentially something where activities could occur, probably not under this administration, but a future administration, to either park vehicles or have other activities that I think would further some of the concerns of the neighbors. We discussed the wall, the height of the wall, the desire that because those properties are lower, that the lowering of the height to 6 feet, which is what, again, the zoning ordinance requires, is more friendly to some of those neighbors. And of course, the design and everything else would be mandated by the planning entitlements as well as the building department. So I just wanted to touch base on those. We're going to talk a little bit about the CEQA, but really would appreciate your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. Next.
Thank you. Good evening, members of Planning Commission and Huntington Beach community. My name is Malia Durand, and I am the CEQA consultant for the Huntington Beach City School District. Thank you for the opportunity to present the CEQA findings and determination for the project. The first item I would like to clarify for the record is that the staff report and the resolution for the project incorrectly referenced the use of 2 exemption classes. Both CEQA Categorical Exemption 15301, Class 1 for existing facilities, and 15303 for construction and conversion of small structures. I would like to clarify for the record that the notice of exemption itself, prepared for the proposed project, only utilized Class 3 CEQA Guideline Section 15303, construction and conversion of small structures. The Class 1 15301 exemption was not utilized for this project. The NOE filed in the record and with the county is accurate to this account and does not reference the use of 15301. Class 3 exemption, CEQA Section 15303, consists of construction and location of limited numbers of new small facilities or structures in urbanized areas. The exemption applies to buildings not exceeding 10,000 square feet in floor area, not involving the use of significant amounts of hazardous substances, where all necessary public services and facilities are available, and the surrounding area is not environmentally sensitive. The proposed project meets all of these requirements as outlined in the NOE filed with the county. The use of the Class 3 exemption also requires that the project be evaluated to ensure that it does not meet any of the exceptions identified in CEQA Guidelines Section 15300.2. These exceptions include location, cumulative impacts, significant effects due to unusual circumstances, scenic highways, hazardous waste sites, and historical resources. As documented in the attachment to the notice of exemption, the project was determined to not meet any of the exceptions provided under 15300.2, and therefore the project as proposed is exempt from further environmental review under the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act, California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Section 15303, because it is consistent with Class 3 exemption. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any further questions.
Thank you very much. Next.
Yeah, hi, I'm Robert Granger, and I'm just here to say I'm a resident of Huntington Beach since '93, lived there in the same house, not in my HB. We can't let the state influence our planning of our city. Is there anyone in the house from Sacramento today? I think we just had an architect that bases his firm in Sacramento today and bases his whole career and livelihood on doing projects for the state and municipalities. It's nice of the school district to fly him down from Sacramento today so he could testify here in Huntington Beach. But, you know, because all these projects run through a lot of roadblocks, it's important that you hire a consultant. You gotta hire the top guy at the state. He tells the school district for a fee, every word, I'll tell you every word to say, every word to print, and what forms to fill out, and we'll get this right on through. I'm the guy. So if a commercial building falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make it exist? They're claiming that this is an existing maintenance operation. All the applause in the House here for all the for who believes that there's a maintenance building currently at the Kettler site. No, there's no building there. There's no maintenance building. What does it mean to exist? Existentialism is the study of existence. Existentialism generally looks for what actually exists rather than finding abstract truths. Like, I see it with my own eyes, it's there, it exists. It's an abstract truth that there's a maintenance yard already there existing and that they're exempt from CEQA. That's their whole basis, is that they're exempt. Then there's Plato. He goes with rationalism, and it's the opposing view to existentialism. Plato's theory of forms asserts that the physical world is not really the real world. Instead, the ultimate reality exists beyond our physical world. We can imagine things that it exists. Like unicorns, they certainly do exist beyond the physical world, don't they? I mean, I want a rainbow unicorn. Then there's our state architect's definition and the CEQA consultant's definition of existence, and it's a new one to me. I'll call this the Plato loophole. Just tell the city planners the maintenance yard already exists. They can't question you. You're the lead agency on this. You can exempt yourself from this. They can't question you. I'm calling BS to this BS Plato law. I mean, it's claiming that their existing maintenance yard is beyond the reality of the physical world. The city of Huntington Beach doesn't buy this rationale that they're plain existing. So attention to the Planning Commission. This is a unicorn maintenance yard that does not exist. It's just a dead horse with a branch attached to its head. However, if you do not kill the maintenance yard at Kettler, it will ironically mean that you're siding with the state. So we're going to have to appeal it to the city council, and you're going to have to tell the city council that you back the state on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Granger.
I'm going to go ahead and call the remaining speakers. Please come down and line up behind the microphones. Becky Granger, James DeMarco, Cheryl DeMarco, Laura Costello, Bai Pham, Carrie Ellis, Linda Minko, and Lori Rebd.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Mark Curry. I've been a resident of Huntington Beach since 1989. I am also on the poster that you saw. I am the house closest on the east side at 285 feet away from where this new proposed existing building exists. I wanted to read you a little bit about the legislative intent of CEQA. And under that section G, it is the intent of the legislature that all agencies of the state government which regulate activities of private individuals, corporations, and public agencies which are found to affect the quality of the environment shall regulate such activities so that major consideration is given to preventing environmental damage while providing a decent home and satisfying living environment for every Californian. That, to me, makes you the lead agency on this, not the school district, which says, I can exempt myself from this because I say I can. I think at this point in time, you have the power to do this. And I believe under 15065, the lead agency shall find that the project may have significant effect on the environment and thereby require an EIR to be prepared for the project where the substantial evidence in light of the whole record of any of the following conditions. And condition number 4 of that section, the environmental effects of the project will cause substantial adverse effects on human beings, either directly or indirectly. You're asking me to accept a building. They say they have a building right now. They don't. They have 4 or 5 20-foot containers and a couple 40-foot containers. That does not constitute a building. They also say that the hours of operation are going to be from 7 o'clock to 5. I know because my windows are open. I hear them come in at 6 a.m. They start their trucks, they back up, they move out. That's 6 a.m. Now, if you're telling me that they're going to be opening garage doors at 6 a.m. to get stuff in and out, that is going to substantially affect me and my living conditions. I want you, as the lead agency, to protect me from that happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mr. Amory Hanson. I'm speaking tonight in opposition to the maintenance yard at William Kettler Elementary School, number 8750 Dorset Drive. I would like to thank the chairman for making the effort to appeal this project. Many residents have expressed concerns about noise and proximity. These concerns should be taken seriously. In addition, I am concerned about the effect of having a maintenance yard so close to a toxic waste dump. With so much maintenance equipment nearby, there is the potential for increased air pollution. Pollution could affect the safety not only of the residents, but also of the maintenance men. Lastly, I question why an additional hour in the morning is needed for storage when most maintenance work is done early in the morning to ensure it is done prior to the pupils' arrivals at the various school sites. I understand the need for a maintenance yard and am hopeful another location can be found. I also believe the Huntington Beach City School District should consider having that and a previously discussed bus yard at the same location if possible. I urge the Planning Commission to take seriously the concerns of the residents and be their voice. Once again, I urge a no vote on the project at number 8750 Dorset Drive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Next speaker.
Good evening. I am asking the Planning Commission to please stop this project. Why are we allowing a commercial building to be built in a residential neighborhood? Hello. My name is Becky Granger, and I live 10 feet from the proposed building site where it will go. As I walked around my neighborhood collecting signatures for our petition to stop this building, every neighbor that I talked to was outraged and blindsided that a commercial building is being allowed in our neighborhood. The district says they are exempt from any oversight. A couple of trucks and a storage container in their parking lot does not make an existing maintenance and operation facility. There is no maintenance and operation facility at the school district. This proposed 7,500 square foot commercial building is a new building. Since this is a new building, they are not exempt from getting approved from the City Planning Commission. They feel entitled and think that they can do whatever they want because they say they are exempt. They took 0 recommendations from the Design Review Board. The Design Review Board recommended that they move the building 20 feet back. By doing that, they would only lose some, I think, 10 parking spots. It makes no sense for them not to do this because they have a huge parking lot, which is never even a quarter full at any time, or making the building look more like the neighborhood instead of a prefab metal building. The failure of the district to consider the impact of the neighboring community is proving that what a terrible neighbor they are. I'm concerned about the stormwater runoff from the grading that they did, which was not permitted. The district raised the level of their site by 5 feet, plus a 20-foot high commercial building will reside on top of this. Mind you, the neighbors' yards are sunken way below the adjacent walkway by at least 4 feet. This making this new building almost 30 feet tall next to our backyards. I'm concerned about the noise levels and the wood shop, metal shop, air conditioning units, vehicles, pollution and noise, and of course the methane, which has never been addressed. I'm concerned about my property value because if this goes through, I will live next to this gigantic commercial building, which will tower over my house and backyard. I'm concerned about the potential dark corridor that will now have an 8-foot block wall surrounding it and creating an opportunity for illegal activity, and a safety concern for kids and neighbors who will be walking the park, going to Edison High School, and sports activities. Please stop this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Granger. Next.
Hi, James DeMarco.
Dr. Morrow said earlier that the school district has limited resources and is like they want some sympathy. It's not true, and here's why it's not true. They sold Geisler for who knows mega millions, and I attended a school board meeting where Ann Sullivan was so proud of the fact that they were going to be so funded and so flush with money, and they're in great financial shape for years to come. Okay, so don't let any sympathy affect your decision in this. The bottom line is the secret report is not. It needs oversight because here's an example. We all know that there's a bus yard coming. That's going to be a bigger problem even because it's going to affect more people. And the bus yard is going to be at Sowers Middle School, and it's going to be right at the bottom of the hill over Talbot Channel, the little bridge there, which is a blind corridor you can't see as you're approaching. The CEQA consultant stated in the document that there is a continuous 350 feet of corridor, view corridor. It's just not true. So we got to look at the details of what they're giving you. And just like Becky was saying, I see this as 3 school board members causing so much stress and anxiety to so many neighbors. It'll be affecting 2 neighborhoods, the Kettler neighborhood and then the Sowers neighborhood, when they're going to put a fleet of buses there. And they teach kids not to bully, and people feel like they're being bullied into accepting this, and I just don't think that that's okay. I see that there's going to be a potential homeless problem behind that building because you won't be able to see what's going on and who's back there. We talked about breaking the law on the last discussion. Sorry about this, but they got fined for exposed creosote at Sowers by AQMD. That's a fine, means they broke the law. And they don't have a permit, as I understand it, for this supposed maintenance and operations facility, which means they've been operating illegally. And the last thing is, Becky talked about 4 feet of fill dirt, and that 4 feet of fill dirt, as I understand it also, was without any permits. So now water drains into some of the neighbors' yards. We all know that our own lot is supposed to drain out into the street. So they teach kids to obey the law, and they are not. And I just don't think that this is okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeMarco. Next.
Hi, Cheryl DeMarco. I live close to this project, and I am concerned about it. A lot of neighbors also are concerned about it. I want to bring up the fact about the existing facility. I've searched for anything that tells me there's a maintenance and operation facility there. The Division of State Architects, I reached out to them. There's nothing there. There's not any permits or anything at the city. And that is, there. Even at the zoning meeting, it was stated by, I forget who that was, Joanna Cortez. She said that it was a non-conforming maintenance yard, which means it is not, they have no permits. So they were gonna, if they bring this building in, then they are gonna have a maintenance place, but they don't have one now. They're doing it they're just doing it because they can. Kind of like the SCE. This is a PS zone, which I brought up before, and I'm going to bring up again. These things are brought in front of the zoning, and they could have made that determination, and they did, and it got appealed to this level, thank God. But a PS zone, they don't have to bring everything to you guys to look at. They're going to go through the zoning administrator, and they're going to approve things just like this. So I'm glad it's here for the appeal. I really, really do wish that you guys take a very serious look at it. I spoke also to the DSA, the Division of State Architects, because it's not a facility for children. they will not review it and permit it. That's what I understand. That's what I was told directly by the state DSA. They will review it for accessibility, but not for a permit. So they have to then go to the city of Huntington Beach and get their permits and such. So there's a little confusion here. I've been told something from the DSA. Evidently, the architect behind me has been told something different or understands a different thing. I do think they're not going to be required to go to DSA on it, and they can't. So they can't go another route. This is their only route. I have sent some information for you guys, so thank you for listening to me tonight and for reading all my documentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. DeMarco. Next.
Hi, my name's Linda Minko, and I'd like to speak in opposition to the maintenance yard sue. I bought my home in Huntington Beach 35 years ago in the Kettler tract because it was a neighborhood tract. It was a neighborhood tract, and it was a quiet little thing. And ever since Kettler closed, the Huntington Beach City School District has not really been a good neighbor. They let Kettler sit empty and let it turn into a wasteland behind. They let the inside deteriorate while they rented office spaces rather than using it for a district office for several years. And the first I heard about this maintenance yard was when I get a little flyer saying that, oh, come to a meeting that they're going to put a maintenance yard in there. You know, I'm concerned about the noise carries. I'm concerned about the trucks. I just want my little neighborhood that I bought 35 years ago with this ideal that we could have a quiet neighborhood where our kids could grow up and not have a bunch of noise and not have a bunch of trucks. And, you know, so I just hope that you listen to the neighbors and have them put this yard someplace else. The district has misused money, and it's not our fault that they don't have the funds, supposedly. So don't put that on us, and please don't let this yard go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Minko. Next speaker, please.
So hopefully I can provide a little bit of background. Good evening, Chair Twining and Commissioners. My name is Laura Costello. I'm a City Commissioner for Community Library Services, but I am here tonight as a mom and stakeholder in HBCSD. I've had children in this district for 13 years, and also with a small group, we have an advocacy page called Protect Our Surf City Students, POSSE. I've worn many hats within this district as multiple exec PTA board positions, volunteer, advocate, and even as a part-time employee as a recess supervisor. I love this district, and I'm very passionate. In fact, I've not missed a school board meeting in almost 6 years. Having said that, I can tell you nothing has been hidden or kept from the public. I'm actually surprised at many opposition to this proposed M&O project being built. The school district have been excellent neighbors and stewards to our community, investing over $9 million into Kettler to turn it into this district office, which was once an elementary school which closed in 2005 due to declining enrollment. For the neighborhood, properties close to a school site, softball fields, and a park have definitely dealt with traffic and noise. Regarding parks, softball fields, basketball, and pickleball courts alone produce a tremendous amount of noise and complaints. But worse was the many years Kettler sat vacant and homeless. Drug addicts moved into the building, which became a nightmare for the neighborhood. Money from the sale of Labard was meant to build the new district office at Kettler. The city, to save the baseball fields at Labard, utilized the Naylor Act. This allowed cities to purchase surplus recreation open space school property at 25% of the appraised value. Both the city and the developer had many obstacles to overcome before escrow funds could be released, and took years. This required the district to lease a property off Beach and Warner to house the district site until the escrow closed in the beginning of 2017. The lease over 4 years was almost $1 million. I've walked to the proposed M&O site, met with the district, and I've seen the plans. Our maintenance and operations are not what people think. They're gone early in the morning and on school sites to cut grass and do small fix-it jobs before the students arrive. They are not building or doing large, noisy projects. Major jobs are outsourced. I'm here because my major concern is for our fiscal responsibilities as a district and to stop wasteful spending on leases. The lease off Gothard in April of 2025 will accelerate to $45,000 a month. We have already spent $1.4 million on this lease since March of 2020, in addition to the previous 4-year office lease mentioned previously. We have 4 schools currently without air conditioning, more with repair and maintenance needs. We finally have an amazing superintendent, Dr. Winston, and administration. We've gotten ourselves in a good place financially and need to keep it that way. This project is one of the last hurdles to get rid of any useless spending. In the big picture, what's most important is to be fiscally responsible for our children, our staff, and our tax dollars. Thank you. And I just want to mention, the sale of Geisler sold for $39 million. $17 million of that went for COPS, certificate of participation. They were loans. The remaining amount of that money went to build Sowers. We are in a positive financial state due to going basic aid, but that's different than facilities money.
Thank you very much, Ms. Costello.
Hi, my name is Lori Reeb. I have friends that live in the Kettler community. I'm here to object to them putting an industrial facility in a residential neighborhood that it's not zoned for, and it should not be the residents' responsibility that the district says they don't have anywhere else to put it. I know that there's plenty of vacant buildings right now that the city could go to and have their maintenance yard, literally on the corner of Hamilton and Newland, I think it is, right where that all those industrial places are across the street from Medicine Park. There's all kinds of little industrial buildings everywhere that they could rent out for their maintenance operations instead of putting it in the middle of the residential neighborhood. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rebda. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Fee. Just want to start off letting you guys know that I'm very green to this. I'm very unfamiliar with all these codes and regulations. I'm here to represent my family and my neighbors with my perspective. So again, my name is Fee. I live in a property surrounding the Kettle building, specifically the southwest side. I share the home with my wife and 3 young kids. My son's 11, and I have twin daughters that are 8. We're always outside, guys. Front yard, backyard, the park. We're out there doing almost everything, a few hours a day, too much at times. Because you know why? It's safe, okay? So yes, I do have concerns, and I object this plan. What baffles me is a proposal like this came with little effort in notifying the residents. I wasn't aware of this. I lived there for 10 years. I'm probably one of the youngest, newest members here. I'm not sure if you guys seen maps of it, but this Kettle building, 3 sides of it are single-family homes, and the park is in the back. This is not a place for maintenance building, Would you like that in your neighborhood? You guys agree with it, but we don't because we live there, okay? Going to the park. Girls softball team practices there almost every evening during that season, And on the weekends, there are games. These games bring mass crowds of people, parents, siblings, grandparents, friends attending to show support. And that's just the corner of my house. I'm not sure on the other side. It's probably way more. So my question is, why would you expose this to our neighborhood and many other non-residents who enjoys the park? When I say expose, I mean negative aspects, okay? Negative issues for our kids, and especially our seniors. This neighborhood has a lot of seniors living here, and they're very proud of what they have built there. When I say expose again, health risk. Inhaling odor over time. You could visit the park, you might not have any odor, but if you live there over time, that can be a problem, health risk to the senior citizens there. Noise pollution, multiple of these vehicles firing up, backing up. You know how it sounds when they back up, beep, 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 guys are yelling. It's hectic. Vibrations from these vehicles, it's gonna rumble our homes. That's not cool either. And also, it's gonna deteriorate those resident streets more, faster. So you guys are gonna have to upkeep on that. Honestly, I can't think of anything that benefits from this, more negative than anything. So I oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pham. Are there any other speakers?
This is the final call for Carrie Ellis. We have no other speakers.
All right. Now it's time to go to planning commissioners. Planning commissioners will now deliberate on this item. Do I have any speakers?
I can't find my button, but I'd like to speak.
Commissioner Wood.
Thank you, Chairman Twining. I never got my question answered about the location of the building in the rear of the property, number one, and number two. Can staff give us a little more explanation about the apparent dirt hauling onto the site? If they did in fact bring in dirt, was there a haul permit, a grading permit, or was it temporary or permanent?
Their staff does not have any permits of the applicant bringing dirt to the site to adjust the grade.
And maybe someone from the applicant can address the issue of placing the building at the rear of the property?
And if I may, Commissioner, I'd like to hear some justification of the dirt since staff has nothing. Maybe the applicant can explain how they move that dirt on with no permit.
Sure.
So to address the dirt, when you have state property, it is legal for the district to move soils from site to site. When we were doing the Peterson modernization project, we added additional parking as part of the construction that were in an attempt to lower the traffic and parking on Farnsworth Lane to bring it onto our site and off of the community streets. And in that, we knew that an eventual M&O building was going to be an import project, not an export project. So by moving the dirt to our site within the same district, we were able to mitigate a future cost for the M&O building, but also mitigate a current cost of trucking the dirt to a dump site. So that's why the dirt was moved. It was originally placed in piles. We had concerns about air quality for the surrounding neighbors, so we rolled out the dirt on the area. It is not graded. It is not a certified pad. It is just a flat spoils pile. To address the location of the building, in conversation with CEQA and their conversations with noise pollution, the building is in the ideal location, backing up to the houses on the west side. If it were to go run along the south side where the park is, the doors would open towards the existing Kettler building, and there would be issues with noise because the noise wouldn't be directed 280 feet across the parking lot. It would be adjacent to the homes with the building facing the edges. So the noise spill from the sides of the building. So the building is a sound wall, and all the activity occurring on the front of the building was maximized from the resident 280 feet away to dissipate sound as much as possible.
Okay, no further questions right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes, Mr. Manstoff, if I may. So it sounds like when you have a state property, SEEK was out the window primarily. So we're an oil-rich town. So where did you dig that soil that you was stored and now moved? Where did that come from?
The soil came from the Peterson campus on Farnsworth Lane.
Okay. So as an oil-rich community with a heritage of soil contamination, was there any soil samples done for contaminants?
There was testing of the soils during the project before construction even began. We had geotechnical reports.
No, I mean of the soil that you moved, not where you're at, the soil that you moved and now moved onto the site.
There were samples in the area of the soil that was moved.
And is it recorded results somewhere showing that there's no further action, no remediation needed, nothing?
So when you take soil from one site to another site, in a school district, you're not required to test loads because you're moving it from your property to your property. So in essence, it would be the same as moving it from the front of the Peterson site to the back of the Peterson site to raise the grade for a ball wall.
So as a good neighbor builder, wouldn't it be prudent for safety reasons to test that soil, especially when it's out of the ground, whether it's mandatory or not, just as good faith? We have a history of contaminated soil here in Huntington Beach. I'm sure you're aware of that. And you've already pulled it out. And just because someone says don't do it, don't you think it would have been prudent to test that before you've now taken it out of the ground and your backstop is, well, we can move it over here because we didn't go out of our district and we're the state? What if it is contaminated and now it's gone from the ground to the top, but because you have this caveat, you didn't feel it was prudent to test it for the safety of the residents? Now you have exposed soil that you could at least test it and put a no further action notice down, something to that effect. Why wouldn't you do that?
We've tested in the area. There was no reason to believe that the soil at the Peterson site was contaminated whatsoever. We do have tests in soils that we've tested throughout the district that have different considerations that we have to consider, but in this instance, for this Peterson soil, there was no reason to believe it because we had tests in the area.
In the area or at Peterson?
In the area of Peterson. We did multiple soil tests for the project that was a site-wide modernization.
Okay, and those findings are recorded somewhere?
I'm sure I can find them. I was brought on board 3 years ago when that project first started, so I would have to look.
Okay, I mean, I think that would be prudent. Maybe you could present it to our community development. I would just like to see those findings as a matter of record, since you've now gone on the record and said you've tested that, so I'd appreciate that.
Yes, I'll do my best effort.
Well, I mean,
to
it'd be
find
very
it for
easy
you.
to locate the records. They have to be stored somewhere. If there's a soil sample taken, it's now a matter of record. It's a permanent record.
Yeah.
Typically, and I don't know what happened, but it's a boring to the
It's
depths,
fine.
the
I understand.
approximate
You know, and
depths.
I'm clear on phase ones and phase twos
okay.
and all that. I get it. But if they've done something, done a soil sample, and they've recorded no further action, no remediation needed, that's a document that would have living standards, and it would be housed somewhere. So if you could provide it to our community development, just to put a certain level of certainty so we can put that fear or lack of burden on them to wonder. So I appreciate that. So
absolutely.
Okay.
I might suggest, seeing if there was a phase one ever done on the project, that would be an important document. I'm sure there was a phase one done over there at some point in time.
It's recorded.
Yeah.
It's fine. Especially since the state doesn't have to really answer to too many things regarding CEQA. Since if you've done something, produce it. The other concern I have is the misstatement of the two CEQA exemptions to give a categorical exemption. I don't know if this lady was here to talk about that per se, or she ad hoc after I called it out as a misuse of the coding. But for it to get through the zoning administrator and land on the conditional use permit as one of the reasons for approval, that doesn't sit well with me. I just don't get it. There's two codes. I've spent this much time looking at codes, and in one day I found out one doesn't apply, and that was today when I researched the two codes. And for Dr. Morrow, sir, it's a pleasure to have you here. And it was nice to hear you say that you've had 20,000 wives and husbands and kids, and you cared about them. When did that shift for caring for husbands, wives, kids to what's in it for me? I'm going to put my maintenance operation, husbands, wives, kids around you. You were never in my family, so you're out of the 20,000.
I would say that most of these people here had children in the schools where I was principal of. And caring for them is much more than building this maintenance and operations building. It's about kids in general. It's about teaching. It's about environment. It's about all those things. So for what you said, I would take exception to that I do care about them. I've spent 35 years in this city serving the children of this city and the parents of this city. And some of them are in the audience or were earlier today. I think they can attest to the fact that our board does care. I do care. And to be told I don't, I really have to take exception to that.
It was a question. I didn't tell you didn't. I asked you, when did it shift from caring? So is this act that you're engaged in now, would you consider this an act of care for the families that surround that school? Is this a gesture of nurturing and care?
I think that we're looking at mitigating all the concerns that have come to the board, come to the district, to try to find where we can go. Because in this society today, we have people over here and we have people over here. And the job is to come here. Too many times we take this position or this position, and that's what we try to teach kids. There's give and take in this world, and we're trying our best to give and take in this, and all of these things that were brought up tonight will help us in making better decisions, so we do care what we hear. It doesn't feel like it to people that don't want something, but there's a lot of people that want change in this district and in this city. So we all have to listen to them with open ears and try our best to find a way to help them get to the places where we all have to get. We are the lowest funded, one of the lowest funded districts in the state of California. We are moving to a different funding formula based on property tax, and that's going to help us immeasurably as the next few years go by. Not right now, but in the next few years. So as we struggle with this, we're trying to find ways to not spend $500,000 a year on a lease, or what was it for this one, $45,000 a month?
Yeah, by going from a prefabricated metal building to a CMU building, we anticipated a change of $750,000 and that is one of the reasons why this project went through the City Planning Commission and planning entitlements and CUP process in lieu of the DSA process. The other reason was that we wanted community feedback. We wanted to understand what was going on. We've heard things, we've made changes. I think if you saw the initial plan versus where we are now, we've attempted to soften the west side, and we've done a lot of work. If we went through DSA, we wouldn't have had to do that. But the board made the decision that we wanted community input. We wanted to be upfront about this, and also the prefabricated metal building was a substantial savings for the district, being stewards of public funds.
So we do care about our communities.
If I may, sir, you wouldn't be before the Planning Commission. You decided you came before us. No, you didn't. You circumvented us by going through the zoning administrator. The only reason you're here today is because somebody filed an appeal. That's the only reason you're before the Planning Commission.
Do we get to pick where we
No,
go?
well, no, but you did. You said you wanted to come before the Planning Commission. You didn't. But the other thing is, why are we, off topic, but isn't the reason that maybe we're underfunded because we have shrinking enrollment while charter schools and everything rise? I mean, maybe the focus should be on curriculum.
It is.
It is? Why do we have declining enrollment while
Chair,
charter schools and everything else?
I
Yes.
apologize, but
okay.
Off topic? Do you think we could just focus on the application at hand?
Yeah, we could.
I'll just share that declining enrollment is something happening citywide, not just in our school district. And it does affect the funding based on the ADA formula that we currently use. So it puts us in a very low place as far as funding for school districts, which stops us from doing things like air conditioning our schools. We have 4 schools in this city that aren't yet air conditioned. We're constantly looking at ways we can find the funds to do the things that are right for kids so they have optimal learning environments, that we hire the best teachers in this district, that we try our best to provide input for it. We don't always do it right. We fail sometimes, just like you do. But we do take the time to listen, to hear, and grow from that. And again, try to move from here and here, which this world is full of, to here. And that's our option. That's our focus today. How do we get from here and here to here? We need to do something. Otherwise, we're going to continue to lose funds.
Last question for the community development. Can I put a metal prefab home in a neighborhood if I decide forget a sticks and stucco? Can I put a prefab metal home in my neighborhood?
If it complies with the building code, depending on the location, some places in town would need design review. So there will be architectural review.
Mr. Kennedy, just really quickly, I know you care for all the things that are happening in this city, and I respect that. We're, again, trying our very best to do what's right. We always don't do it totally correct. We try to back up and fix the things that we haven't fixed correctly, but the things you're asking are great questions. There's things this board wants to hear, so we can make decisions that support our community, our parents. Many of these people in this community were former parents of Sowers Middle School and Moffett Elementary School and Eder, and we're there for them. That's how I get elected, just like you. I'm on my 3rd term, 12 years in this position, because I think it's something that I care about deeply, and I will continue to, and I appreciate the fact that you do too. So thank you.
Nice finish.
Okay,
I have a
Commissioner Adam.
Go ahead and stay up here, guys. So let me make sure. We've heard quite a bit about, I haven't heard a ton about aesthetics. I've heard a lot about noise, timing. So this idea of moving the building 40 feet further and swapping the parking between, between the street and the building, what could you have just the, sorry, let me ask a different question. Do the folks who work for you drive to your facility and then pick up trucks, or do they bring their own trucks home at night? How does that work?
Their trucks are located on the facility. They drive in the morning. They have everything they need from the day before, and they dispatch immediately to the school sites. The time in the morning is very precious.
Okay,
to us.
so could you move the building further to the east and then have employee parking on the west side of the building?
We could do that. My concern would be the CEQA process then, because we would have parking, if we have parking west of the building, that would be right in our neighbors' backyards.
Okay.
We're exempt under the conditions that we have it designed.
Okay, I'm just asking because I've heard a lot of comments, but it's been a lot about stuff that involves noise and trucks and all these things, and that would help alleviate or improve that. And I haven't heard a lot about a car being parked, but I'm just asking. So I'm a layman. That's what I am. So I'm asking.
I believe that through our design professionals and our CEQA consultants, the review of the layout of the building as it stands provides the best noise barrier for the surrounding neighbors, from having the maximized distance to the west or to the east, and also acting as a barrier to the west. Moving the building is not something the district has ever had off the table, but we do have concerns when this administration leaves and that building were to stand 50 years, 30 years, 20 years from now, that they wouldn't remember this conversation and everybody will have moved on and activities would happen behind the building, between the building and the residents. So the goal was to provide a space there to set the building back further than the requirement, but also have planting and green space there to deter any activities occurring in the future.
Okay, it's just a question. It seems like it could help, but
yeah, and
maybe the architect could opine.
Well, let me add to that conversation. Mr. Manstoff, you said that you had the reason you didn't want to move it. Let's say the noise was not the issue, and back was best or front was best, but you just said the reason you didn't want to move it because you had fear of CEQA because of what you currently have. Can you elaborate on that? What do you have? You have some storage containers that you work outside of, but what would moving the building back have any effect on CEQA when you guys basically are almost exempt from CEQA, it seems?
The notice of exemption, and maybe you can help. So the notice of exemption from CEQA was based around the design, square footage, and everything of the building as you see in your plans. If the building were to be shifted and we aren't dissipating the noise from the sides, we may not qualify for the same CEQA exemption because now we're causing a significant impact with noise, and maybe you can CEQA speak this for me.
Of course. So the district is not in itself exempt from CEQA. That is not what's exempt from CEQA. The state is not exempt from CEQA. The project, as evaluated, is currently exempt from CEQA, and as I mentioned earlier, under 15303, which is construction or conversion of small structures. So that is why the project is exempt. The district works as the lead agency for their own projects. They are the applicant and the lead agency, but they still have to comply with CEQA, period. So the evaluation was done on the project as proposed. The project, as proposed, qualified for the CEQA 15303 exemption as detailed in the notice of exemption. A detailed evaluation of noise impacts was not conducted because the project itself was exempt from further evaluation, and there was no significant adverse effect, nothing that triggered the need for noise evaluation. There was no significant construction that required ground drilling that would cause ground-borne vibration. There was no proposed activities that would cause noise impacts. With regards to position of the building and noise impact concerns from the residents, the current alignment of the building does provide for the best noise attenuation, and that's noise attenuation for the properties behind where the proposed building would be, because the building itself would work as a noise barrier. Distance from the properties across the parking lot, 280 feet, you have 3 dBA of noise attenuation every 50 feet. So you're going to see like a significant decrease in any noise. So we're talking about noise activities. We're not talking about like, vehicle maintenance. We're not talking about like, crazy loud. We're talking about the facilities maintenance activities that they're doing when they come to the site in the morning and they're like, I have to go fix a doorknob. I have to fix a toilet.
Okay,
I have
hold
to
on a
fix...
sec. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I haven't heard an answer to my question yet then.
Sorry.
I'm talking about physically moving the building towards the 287 and make the 4393 or 83. And putting parking on the side. I don't know, residents, how you feel about that, but you're used to seeing cars, everybody is. I'm asking, what if you just shifted the building? How does that impact the noise? Certainly there's no impact to noise to the east. Sorry, where are you at?
You see where that arrow is pointing at the 287?
Yeah.
That's my house.
Okay. I think, all right.
That's my bedroom.
Okay,
So the ingress and egress
Okay.
are here every day.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for pointing that out, because we've heard quite a bit about the folks on the west side. So just wanted to clarify. Okay.
But moving that building, the only limiting factor for us is how the CEQA would view the noise. We believe this is the highest sound attenuation layout that we could do. And that is why we qualify for the exemption through CEQA. If we were to move the building another 20 feet or 30 feet.
Yeah, you're saying your noise impact to the east.
Across.
Okay.
Might increase.
Now I understand the issue. Okay.
But you didn't do a noise survey. You're speculating.
Can I speak to that? Why we don't need them?
As I mentioned previously, no noise measurements were warranted based on the existing conditions of the site, and the activity is not changing moving forward. Does that make sense?
Certainly it's changing. You'll have more scale. Instead of 5 guys sitting outside of 3 shipping containers, you're going to have 14 employees inside a metal building, which is going to resonate and echo. I don't know what you might know about a non, what do you call that stuff? The stuff that goes in the wall. A metal building is going to resonate. It's going to echo out. You didn't do a noise study. You're making a statement that you are making as it's factual, and you're telling us that you don't think it would warrant a noise study where it sits and a noise study if it was back here. Just again, in good faith for the residents. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, we don't agree a lot on stuff, but this seems like a shortcut. A noise study, just because you're not obligated to do one doesn't mean you couldn't do one, correct? And they're not expensive.
Correct.
They're not.
And we typically deal with DSA and not through the city, so our processes are very different. So this is kind of uncharted waters for us. I think we've been pretty amicable through the zoning administrator, through the design review board, and through the planning department, hearing what has been said.
Right.
If that is a condition of approval, we could do a simulation noise study. We're not against that.
Can I ask one question? Yeah, thanks. Are you going to be using a tile saw?
Not in the... I don't want to say never, but we don't have a guy that does tile, and if we were doing tile, we would be doing it on a school site. This is like the garage that you keep all of your tools and supplies in. it doesn't help you very much to cut tile and then have to ship it over to a site. You would bring the tile saw to the site and work on the bathroom there.
Well, the only reason I asked that question is because I saw a tile saw there when I was touring the facility. So I'm gonna take that as we would do the work at the school site and not the maintenance yard. Thank you.
What about a table saw or anything else? Band saw, table saw, planer?
Yeah, we could use all of those things to do maintenance for our 4,700 kids.
You would be doing that there, but currently there's not a guy in the parking lot with a table saw, band saw, or planer, right?
There's a table saw and a band saw. There's no planer that are in the C container. In the C containers, we take the tools that we need out and put them on the makeshift table that we have there, and we do all of our sawing or painting or any of the maintenance work that will occur in the M&O building facility right now occurs outside on the C container, outside of a C container. Part of the reason that we are in need of this facility is we've recently had the C containers broken into, and $5,000 worth of tools and equipment was stolen from the school district, and we have no way of putting our standard cameras or security systems that we have in all of our district properties in these C containers.
Man, you could put an Arlo camera on the top of all those things, but that's neither here nor there.
But I believe you would be using those tools during daytime hours, correct?
Yes.
I just want one clarification. Under CEQA 15303, exemption class 3, and the exceptions 15300.2, you're considering the 3 C containers as a maintenance facility, is that right?
The only discussion within the notice of exemption itself was of existing operations and current operations occurring on the site, not of existing structures or buildings.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any more questions from the commissioners? All right. Well, we're all done with that, so, do we have a motion on this item? Oh, close public hearing. All right. Do we have a motion on this item?
Anybody
No,
want to go for it?
excuse me, but I think we have a couple of issues that all of us have raised up here. And since this is an appeal, I don't know how this process could work. I don't think we can condition some of these things because we wouldn't have those results until after certain testing has already taken place. So my suggestion, if there's a way staff can consider this, is possibly a continuance with the restriction, with the caveat that the applicant do a noise study and provide testing results for any soil that's been brought onto the site. Any suggestions, staff?
I think that is an option for the commission. Yeah, you can continue it with the feedback to the applicant to provide that information.
But we have to make a motion to continue it, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And I'll make a motion to continue the item with the stipulation that the applicant is required to provide a noise study and evidence of testing of any soil that has been brought to the Kettler site.
I'll second.
If I may, do you want to continue it to a date certain or just a date uncertain until it's provided?
I think a date uncertain until it's provided.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Adams seconded that.
Does anybody have any other conditions before we vote? I don't.
We have all ayes. Commissioners Acosta Galvan and Pellman are absent. Motion carries.
Okay, we're on to the consent calendar. Next on the agenda is consent calendar, and there is a set of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll
Okay.
second.
All right, there you go.
We have all ayes. Commissioners Acosta Galvan and Pellman absent. Motion carries.
And is there any planning items tonight?
No planning items.
All right. Before we close the evening, before we close this evening, planning commissioners, do you have any comments to provide? We'll start with Commissioner Ian.
Commissioner, no, I just want to say thank you to staff and for everybody who attended tonight. Appreciate your input, but especially staff. Thank you for all your efforts.
No comments, thank you.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a long process with the zoning map amendments, and I thank staff for continuing to be patient with us and for allowing us to go through a lengthier process to do them, smaller chunks at a time. And I think all of us appreciated that. And thank you for your efforts and your hard work on getting it done. Thank you.
No comment. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll call this meeting adjourned.